went closer to Jesus before. So can you help me out? Oh, can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? Or can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? Or can you help me out? Can you help me out? I've been scared to look at my soul. I've been afraid I would follow alone. Yeah, afraid of the things I've been told.
It is Friday edition of Running Point on YSNLive.com. Ron Potesta with you. It's a hot one, and it's going to rain pretty soon here, and we know this because the second round of the Workday Charity Open down in suburban Columbus is currently suspended because of the inclement weather. We've been talking about the weather being a little bit of a problem potentially this weekend down at the house that Jack built, or the course that Jack built, and sure enough, second round coverage has been suspended in the Workday Charity Open. When play resumes, 11 under is the leader right now, and that would be Colin Morikawa. He has shot 4 under for the day through 15. He is 11 under, still on the course. Everyone is pretty much still on the course in the second round of the Workday Charity Open. This is the first of 2 consecutive PGA events at Muirfield, which is in Dublin, just outside of Columbus. So right now, the second round is suspended as there is a storm going through the Columbus area. That storm is supposed to be hitting the Mahoning Valley a little after 2 o'clock, possibly close to 3 o'clock this afternoon. So that may very well, the storm may very well impede the games that are going to be played at Scene Park tonight on fields 1, 2, and 3 as the B-League hopefully gets to the end of the regular season by early next week. So we'll most definitely talk a little bit about this on a phone-in Friday edition of Running Point on YSNLive.com. The number to call, 330-886-0813. Coming up at 12:15, we will hear from the voice of the men's basketball program at Youngstown State University, Rob Schmidt. As predicted, Darius Quisenberry will be back for his junior year at Youngstown State University. DQ dropping his plan to go into the NBA draft. And I think it's a wise decision. Not that Darius Quisenberry is not an NBA caliber player. He isn't right now. That doesn't mean that he's not going to be, period. Here's the thing that everyone needs to understand. When you're playing in a mid-major, you really have to be an unbelievably great player to go from a mid-major into the NBA and be able to be a consistent NBA player. Give a great example. Kay Felder was the last Horizon League player to jump into the NBA. Kay Felder's career was very brief in the National Basketball Association, and he really wasn't a consistent NBA player. He was more or less jumping between the D League or the G League, whatever they call it now, and the NBA. He wasn't a consistent NBA player. Kay Felder was a really good basketball player in the Horizon League, but it never transpired or it never transferred to the NBA game. I think Darius Quisenberry, in the next 2 years, assuming that he continues to grow at Youngstown State University, I think he does have a chance at being a decent NBA player. I don't think he's going to be a superstar by any stretch of the imagination, but I do think that Darius's game can play on the NBA level. It's just he needs his 2 more years at Youngstown State University. I understand what he was trying to do, and I'm sure that if they have a solid year this year, knock on wood they have a season, if Darius Quisenberry has a solid junior year, I'm sure that he'll want to do the exact same thing and see where his draft status would be. There are people that will put a bug in the ear of the players if they choose to and say, okay, if I go into the NBA draft, where do you project me to be? Apparently, Darius must have heard that the projection wasn't very good because he decided to come back to Youngstown State. And I think it's a fantastic decision, not only for the university, I also think it's a fantastic decision for Darius Quisenberry because, and I've said this, and this is not in any malice whatsoever, he simply is not ready to play in the NBA. Doesn't mean he's not going to be an NBA player. It just means right now, Darius Quisenberry is not NBA material. And I think it's a fantastic decision to go back to Youngstown State, and hopefully he plays at YSU over the next 2 years, continues to improve, continues to put up some good numbers, continues to improve every facet of his game, and then after he graduates from YSU, I think he has a shot. I think he has a shot to be a decent player in the association. So we'll hear from Rob Schmidt at 12:15, and we'll get his opinion, and we'll also get his take and what the university is going to be doing moving forward. There's plenty of rumors flying around that the Horizon League may very well be the next league to not play non-conference games. We'll catch up with Rob. We'll talk a little bit about that. Speaking of which, college football. If college football is going to be played in the fall, and we believe that it is, there is a very good chance. The Big Ten's already announced that they're only going to be playing conference games. The ACC, as early as today, will be announcing the same thing. And from what I understand to some people that I've spoken to, the other 3 Power 5 conferences are going to fall in line. What does that mean for an independent like Notre Dame? Well, Brian Driscoll, who covers Notre Dame for Sports Illustrated, if you have seen his work, irishmaven.com, if you've seen his work, you know how talented he is. Yesterday, Brian Driscoll wrote a story about this very same subject, what Notre Dame is potentially planning on doing in 2020 in this upcoming football season, just in case this becomes a reality. And spoiler alert, it looks like it is going to become a reality where the 5 power conferences in college football are going to strictly play in their own conference, and that will be the college football season, assuming we have, knock on wood, assuming we have a college football season. We will also talk about the incredibly stupid idea of playing football in the spring. And it's on the high school level, on the college level, it makes no sense. None. It just does not make any sense. Listen, on the high school level, I'm sure that if this push comes to shove, and again, if you heard the show on Wednesday, Tim Street from the OHSAA was on, and we asked him, are you comfortable saying unequivocally that the OHSAA is not going to move football to the springtime? And Tim Street's answer was, we're not going to do it. If we have to move to springtime, it's going to be based on a decision by Governor DeWine or a higher power. But even if they move to football this springtime, I think it's a god-awful decision. Not only that, for the kids, and there's a smattering of them that will go on to college. You're going to be telling the college player, okay, you're going to be playing from, February all the way to next December. No, that doesn't fly. There's a really good chance that those kids would ultimately be redshirted. There's no way that a college coach worth his or her salt is going to tell a kid that played spring football oh, by the way, we want to abuse your body a little bit more and have you play this violent sport for 9 or 10 months. That doesn't happen. That just doesn't happen. So no college coach worth his or her salt would sit back and tell a true freshman that's what we're going to do. Those freshmen would get redshirted. Let's take it a step further. If college football decides to go through this insanity of playing football in the springtime, what does this mean for the next level of the professional level? And again, as few as the high school kids are that go to college, the same few from college go to the pros. If you're playing in the springtime, what is the NFL going to be doing? Well, they're not going to have an NFL draft until the season is over. Season won't end until, April, maybe May? You've completely screwed up the 2021 offseason for the National Football League. It makes absolutely no sense to have football in the springtime in high school or in college. It makes no financial sense whatsoever. And Brian Driscoll will talk about that. If you read the article on irishmaven.com, we'll talk a little bit about the article that Brian Driscoll wrote. What is Notre Dame going to do if all 5 power conferences, and we're being told there's a very good chance, if there is college football in the fall, there is a very good chance that all 5 power conferences, the ACC, the SEC, the Big 10, the Big 12, the Pac-12, they're all going to sit back and say, we are going to play amongst ourselves. We are not going to have any non-conference games. What does that mean for Notre Dame? Well, Notre Dame will certainly get a number of ACC games, but they're only going to have so many. How do they fill out the rest of the schedule? Brian Driscoll will talk about that at 1 o'clock, and then we'll also pick up your phone calls at 330-886-0813. Hopefully we can speak to someone from West Branch or from Salem, as the Eastern Buckeye Conference will be down one team. Canton South they voted yesterday, or last Thursday, to leave the Eastern Buckeye Conference and join the Principals Athletic Conference for the 22-23 school year. So Canton South will be gone in the EBC following the 21-22 school year. And it will be interesting to see if the Eastern Buckeye Conference is going to survive. If it doesn't, what does that mean for the schools that are left? Alliance, Carrollton, Marlington, Minerva, Salem, and West Branch. Well, Alliance, Salem, and West Branch, they're about the same size as Canfield. My suggestion is those 3 schools, Canfield and Howland, you can get together and put together a pretty good conference, because right now Canfield and Howland doesn't have a seat at the table. Either that or Canfield and Howland join Alliance, Carrollton, Marlington, Minerva, Salem, and West Branch. Yes, travel would be involved, but it's better than being an independent. We'll talk a little bit about that. But coming up in a bit, we will hear from Rob Schmidt. Darius Quisenberry deciding to stay at Youngstown State University. We'll get Rob's opinion on that, plus the upcoming Horizon League basketball season. Is the Horizon League going to be conference only? We'll talk a little bit about that with the voice of the YSU men's basketball program, Rob Schmidt. That's coming up after this timeout. It's a Friday edition of Running Point on YSNLive.com.
21
Good evening,
News.
and thank you for joining us.
Let's get right to our top More story experienced reporters
A new Wilmington
At
restaurant.
GM Lordstown,
telling more local stories
We'll look at
baby
efforts
boy
to
is
curb
recovering from a broken.
around our
Good
valley,
Community in
afternoon.
Niles,
We are here in Youngstown, right up.
because you expect
Important for everyone.
No place like home.
more local news.
In Mercer County
before
Court.
they become life-threatening.
21 News is our valley's #1 local news.
Welcome home to a home made homier with Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods. Inspiration starts at BairdBrothers.com and is turned into reality when high-quality hardwoods are delivered right to your home. Baird Brothers has the latest design trends: shiplap and skinny lap interior siding, antique oak rustic flooring, and, well, you'll find them all at BairdBrothers.com. Ordered easily, delivered conveniently, enjoyed comfortably. BairdBrothers.com.
Hello, I'm Greg Burbick with G. Burbick Farms. For the last 100 years, my family has farmed in the Columbiana and Mahoning counties. I began raising cattle in 1996 with the goal of providing a better product for you and your family on the dinner table. Our grass-fed and grain-supplemented Black Angus beef are raised with no hormones, steroids, or antibiotics. We're known for our hometown-friendly service and incredible tasting products. We're locally owned and have customers across the tri-state area. Our products go from our farm to your family. Stop by our farm on New Buffalo Road or visit us on the web at gburbickfarms.com. Don't forget to like us on Facebook. G. Burbick Farms, it just tastes better.
Welcome back to a Friday edition of Running Point on YSNLive.com. It is a phone-in Friday edition, and we are joined by the voice of the YSU men's basketball program, Rob Schmidt. Mr. Schmidt, sir, how are you today?
It's a good Friday. I'm always happy to talk with you.
Hey, let's talk about some great news coming out of Youngstown State, and it's the fact that Darius Quisenberry has decided that he will come back to YSU for his junior year. And again, I didn't fault Darius at all for trying to figure out where he would potentially stand in the NBA draft. And you always have guys that pretty much are in the know what to expect, where the potential is for a person, whether they're going to be drafted in the first round, a lottery pick, a late first round pick, a second round pick, or not drafted at all. And apparently Darius didn't like what he potentially heard and decided to come back for his junior year. And all things being equal, Rob, I think that he made the right decision.
Well, I think the whole time, Darius had been supported by the coaching staff because it's a great learning opportunity for him. There are people obviously that maybe felt he wasn't ready for the NBA. He's not currently NBA material. So, I think he went there using it primarily as a learning experience. He wanted to find out what the next level was about. What would he need to do to reach that next level? Me personally, I think the fear here that I had was, if someone were to say, look, you've got the potential, but you need to go to X university as opposed to where you currently are. That's my biggest fear, is they kind of fill your head with notions. But I think more and more, Darius realizes this is the perfect fit for him. This is the place where they've believed in him from the start, and he knows that this could be a coming season where some very, very special things could happen. And Coach Calhoun and his staff has done a great job of instilling in the players, be a part of history. Let's make a difference. And they've all bought into that, and I think, Darius is obviously one of the big cogs in the future of this basketball program and any success that could come its way. But I thought Darius was very smart. I thought he was more than willing to take on any kind of, constructive criticism he may get and kind of learn from it and improve his game. And not only does he improve himself, he improves our team and our chances to continue to win.
No, and I think that Youngstown State, again, knock on wood, we have basketball this year and we have a full season. Honestly, I think that the future is so bright for this basketball program, not only this year, but for many years to come, because Coach Calhoun is setting up the program to where we are going to see something that, frankly, we've never seen before. That's the goal, and that's where everyone's heads are at right now. And Rob, I think that this particular year, assuming we have a basketball year with Darius Quisenberry, I think there is a very good chance that we see something that we've never seen before, i.e. the NCAA basketball tournament.
Well, I definitely think you're looking at a team coming into the 2020-2021 season that's going to be considered, one of the top three teams in this league coming in, along with more than likely Wright State and, maybe Northern Kentucky, just because of their past success over the last 5 years. But there are so many uncertainties with other teams in this league, and there are some really good coaches who could turn programs around so quickly that may have been in the bottom half of the league a year ago that could easily make that jump to the top. But, with what YSU is coming back on the men's side, and, even if you want to delve into the women, both programs are strong. But what the men have coming back and the proven scorers, the proven defenders, and then, the influx of new players that are coming in that they're very excited about. And, between the transfer from Shaw University that can shoot it and, the freshmen who can block shots, I think, they feel they may have all the pieces right now. And, with Darius coming back, that further solidifies that. I commend him for going through the process and learning, but it's nice that he made the decision now, because you're in mid-July when players are allowed to start reporting next week for, summer workouts. So he's gotten that out of the way. And I think he's fully focused on being a part of, Penguins basketball this coming season.
You brought up something really interesting where your fear was someone would put a bug in Darius's ear saying, hey, you got to get out of a mid-major school if you want to be a guy with any chance to be in the NBA. First of all, I don't think that that's necessarily true. There are plenty of kids that have gone from mid-major schools to the NBA. Now, having said that, you're familiar with the Horizon League. Kay Felder had a very nice career in the Horizon League. He went to the NBA, and he really didn't establish himself and get a lot of traction to be an NBA player. He was too busy making the jump from the G or D League or wherever they're calling that league to the NBA, and he didn't have that much time in the NBA. So you do have to be a dominant, completely dominant player as a mid-major player, and that's where I think Darius needs to have 2 more really spectacular years at Youngstown State University and then take your shot at the NBA, because I think he projects to be a solid NBA player. Not a superstar at this point, but I think he could be a solid NBA player.
No, you can go back and cite, and you're 100% right. I'm not one, I've never been one, who advocates that you need to go to a Power 5 just to get into the NBA. And you could cite players in the Horizon League who have played here, finished their career here, and gone to the association. Cleveland State's Norris Cole comes to mind immediately. He won an NBA championship with LeBron at Miami. Now, was he with the perfect situation? Yes, but the fallback with Kay Felder was his size. Norris Cole was bigger. So Kay Felder was fighting not only maybe the mid-major stigma, but he was more importantly, he was fighting, a size differential going into that kind of environment in the NBA. But Norris Cole's a guy that stayed here, played here, and went to the NBA. I had another guy on the top of my mind, and I just lost him. Ray McCallum at Detroit, who obviously went to play for his dad at Detroit Mercy and could have gone to UCLA or a Power 5, decided to be with his dad, but he got them to the NCAA tournament at Detroit, and he ends up going to the NBA and played there for several seasons. So it's been done before. The one name that always comes up of a guy who played in the Horizon and then went on for a year to a Power 5 and then emerged in the NBA is Bryn Forbes, who was at Cleveland State. And shockingly, Kendrick Perry, who's one of our top 5 players all time at Youngstown State, when they went head-to-head, KP shut him down, and Forbes couldn't get a shot. He goes to Michigan State and flourishes. Now, it might just be maybe he was in the right situation at Michigan State with Izzo. Maybe he worked on his game and got better, and then went to the San Antonio Spurs and had a good NBA career. But that's a guy I would have never imagined going to the NBA when I saw him play at Cleveland State. Good kid, good guard, worked hard, and made the most of his opportunity. But so there's both sides, but I've seen more kids come out of the Horizon League and reach the league than those that have transferred and not gotten to the league. So, there's been a lottery pick that's come out of this league recently in Gordon Hayward. So you can make your case. I've always said it at all levels. If you're good enough, they're going to find you. And in today's world, between social media and all the camps, they're going to find you. And I thought that's what was smart about Darius is he's put his name on the radar. He's given people a reason to kind of watch him. Like, those guys that are on a watch list, he's on that now. So, they'll kind of see how he progresses and what he does here at YSU. And to me, there's no reason to go anywhere else.
And the thing is, with Darius on the watch list, as you said, let's be honest, Rob, there are going to be NBA scouts that are going to be coming to Beagley for the next 2 years to watch Darius play. Sound the alarm for every single player on that Penguins team. You never know who's going to be in the stands. That's yet another reason to give 150% if you can. Look, as great a player as Darius is, there is a very comfortable room at the NBA table for Niles Bohannon. I think that Bohannon is one of those kids that, especially with his rebounding abilities, and you don't have to be 6'9" or 6'10" to rebound in the NBA. Niles Bohannon is 6'6", and he's getting rebounds all over the place. I think there's a seat at the table for a Bohannon in this league.
Well, even if you don't, in today's world, basketball's so global that there are a lot of players who don't get an opportunity to play in the NBA but can go overseas. And at their age, where they don't have a lot of things tying them down, they can have success overseas if they're okay with kind of bumping around. You know what I mean? You might play in Hungary one year, you go play in Italy the next, you go play in Slovakia one. Sometimes those guys got to bounce around a little bit. But, if they truly enjoy the game, sometimes overseas gives those guys a great opportunity and really gives them a nice professional career and an opportunity to see the world that they may not otherwise see. And Kendrick Perry continues to succeed overseas. Cam Beelan continues to succeed. He succeeds overseas. They're both together again. So those are two guys that have done very well in their professional career coming out of YSU.
Rob, let's talk a little bit about the upcoming season. Assuming we have one, the Horizon League is expanded, and there's plenty of talent in the Horizon League. We were talking Youngstown State, Wright State, obviously Northern Kentucky. Cleveland State is starting to build something pretty interesting up in the great city of Cleveland, and we bring in two more programs, Robert Morris and Purdue Fort Wayne. This is turning into a really nice mid-major conference.
Well, they've done a really good job. I for a while there, I would look at the Horizon League, and I think they got caught flat-footed when Butler left, and then when Valpo and Loyola left. I think they got caught looking in the rearview mirror at the success that Butler had, reaching the national championship 2 straight years, and they weren't ready for teams leaving this league. And I think they were resting a little on their laurels. And then, when you get those teams to depart, I think they've done a great job, though, bringing in teams that are in this footprint, like Indianapolis with IUPUI and Fort Wayne and now Robert Morris. So I think this conference is as strong as it's been since I started covering games back in 2002. Now, we may not have the caliber of players yet, but this league, which at one time might have been on the decline, is now on the uptick. And I think Robert Morris is an outstanding acquisition for this league. They immediately project in the middle of the pack. I think they'll have to get used to the physical style of play. Even though this isn't the most physical of leagues, it's still more physical than the Northeast Conference. So I think they're going to have to get used to that. Purdue Fort Wayne, that's a team that they've got a very good coach. Coach Kaufman does a great job. So it won't take them long to get acclimated to this league. But I agree. I think the people that have come in recently, those teams, those universities, have really strengthened this conference and turned it back into a very good, solid mid-major again.
And if you look at the I-76 corridor, Cleveland, Youngstown, Pittsburgh, all three of the colleges are going to be playing in the same league. Man, that's just going to be really fun. And economically, I think it's going to be a boom for the Robert Morris fans that want to come to Beagley and check out the Robert Morris YSU men's or women's basketball game. If they want to make the trip to Cleveland, I mean, that's not out of the question. You get the Browns and Steelers, the Indians and the Pirates when they play interleague play. The Cleveland-Pittsburgh rivalry continues on a collegiate level. And I think economically it's going to make complete sense for these three schools to be aligned in the same league because it's only going to help them.
Yeah, and I think for Robert Morris alone, that's a great partner for us. Not only do they have, basketball and all those other sports that are nearby, but we could continue to play them in football. So, they're going to be a very strong partner of YSU. And, I think that they can make the trip to Detroit for a weekend if they want to go. Fort Wayne, more than likely, if they keep travel partners, will be teamed up with Cleveland State. So, they're right smack dab in the footprint. No, I thought it was great. And, we've seen Robert Morris, and ever since I've been covering games here, that's always been a swing game. That's one of those games where if you do well, it can propel you to a good season. If not, it takes a couple weeks to get over that loss. I think they're that important on your schedule. The nice thing now is if you lose one, you got a chance to come back and get them again in the same season. So I'm looking forward to that. I know Andy Toole's done a great job. Their recruiting base is different at Robert Morris. They're more of an East Coast-based recruiting team. I don't know if that'll change or not. This obviously is going to allow them, though, to get into Cleveland, Dayton, and Chicago a little bit more than they were able to before.
I was going to say the recruiting war up along the lake in northeastern Ohio, northwestern Pennsylvania, and on along down the Mahoning Valley and into western Pennsylvania, and say Beaver County and over to Lawrence County. Now it's not just Robert Morris. Youngstown State has planted a flag there, and that Cleveland State wants to take as many kids away from Youngstown State and now away from Robert Morris. So the kids are going to be getting something very positive out of this because there's going to be a lot more eyes on the kids in high school when it comes to basketball in this area.
Oh, and, Wright State's already made some inroads up here. They got the kid from Ursuline who did very well and, was looking to get a contract overseas, Mark Hughes. I think that's what makes this league great now. Some of these kids can play against one another at the high school level and then, kind of continue that rivalry or even have teammates split apart as they move into college, which, that helps kind of breed the rivalries that maybe sometimes we're lacking, in this league for us.
Rob, let's talk a little bit about the upcoming season. The college football, it's already been announced that the Big Ten is dropping their non-conference games. They're going to play strictly conference games within the next day or so. The ACC is going to follow suit. From what I understand, all of the Power 5 conference teams at some point in time are going to commit to this. And that's going to leave a lot of problems for the mid-majors. When we go into basketball season, is there a possibility, or is it being discussed, that the Horizon League is going to follow suit and not have a non-conference schedule and simply just play their conference games?
Well, I think when you look at that, it's probably a little too early to determine, what their schedule is going to be as far as conference versus non-conference or an entire 31-game schedule, just because there's so many uncertainties now. I think they want to get through football first and that scheduling and see where they're at before I think they make any decisions on scheduling a basketball. But who knows? If this continues at the rate that it currently is and you don't find a vaccine, they may, with the Ivy League pushing things back till January 1, it could be. And there's nothing off the table. I think everything's still on the table. I think for football, I think everything's on the table. Conference games only, playing in the spring. I think everything for basketball is on the table starting in January. But I know the NCAA is going to want to make sure that they get in an NCAA tournament this year. I'd be hard-pressed to believe that they would forego another NCAA tournament.
I'm hoping that we have the non-conference schedule because, refresh everyone's memory. YSU has a very nice non-conference schedule coming up this year.
Well, the nice thing is they're hosting that MTE, so they get an exempt tournament here at home, which includes Eastern Michigan. I'm trying to think the other two teams off the top of my head, but it's an opportunity to play 3 games in 3 days at Beagley, which they've not been able to do for a long, long time. So it's it's that, and I think Coach Calhoun's trying to really do a good job of balancing his. I think now you get 11 games. So his 11 games, I think 6 home, 5 away. They've done a really good job including that MTE. So that's why they're excited, because they get to host 3 games in 3 days and 3 games that you could easily win. Not easily, but you could win.
Rob, from year one, and now this will be Jared's 3rd year at Youngstown State University, talk about the growth that Coach Calhoun has brought, not only with his coaching ability, but the growth of the program in general, because Coach Calhoun has brought a lot of things to YSU the last 2+ years.
Well, and I've said it to him, and I know you and I have talked about it before. I really commended him for the way he has adapted his coaching style. And some coaches are stubborn and they don't want to change what they believe in. And they'll continue with their philosophy regardless of the players they have. And I think he's done a masterful job of adapting his philosophy to not only the mid-major level for Division I college basketball, but for where he's at Youngstown State and the type of players that he has. When he came in, he wanted that West Virginia style of press and run up and down the floor and shoot threes. And, that first year it wasn't as successful as he wanted. So, they slowed things down. They ran more of a set offense. And, I think they played much better defense over this past year than they did his first couple of years. So I think, the way he has kind of just changed his philosophy and kind of worked in harmony with the players, I think is commendable. I think, to me, that's always the mark of a great coach. And I think that's why we're so excited about, what this year holds and next year holds. Because the other philosophy that I believe in, and he follows suit, and I commend him for it, is he wants to recruit high school players. There are so many coaches that want to win now, and sometimes they'll reach on junior college players and hope that they can put a patchwork team together. Well, I think at our level, it's nice if you can get kids as a freshman. They learn your system, they grow, they seemingly fall in love with the school, and by the time they're seniors, it's second nature to them. And his belief is he'd rather have high school players than junior college players. There's nothing wrong with junior college players. You got to find the right ones and the right fit, and we've done that on a couple of occasions here. But I like his philosophy of going out and getting high school players that can shoot. I think they're finding now you got to find some guys that can shoot. But I like the way he has kind of changed. His staff is incredible. I think, between Jason Slay and, Chindawakwu and Ethan Faulkner, those guys, young, aggressive kids that go recruit, and they're personable. And I think, they all believe in this university and what we're attempting to do. So, you put all that together, and it's a lot of fun to be around those guys.
Yeah, you can tell the last couple of years at YSU, Bigley Center has been more energized in the last couple of years than I've seen it in quite some time. And spoiler alert, it's only going to get better. I think that, again, assuming we have a season, and I hope and pray that we do, a full year, I think a lot of folks are going to be really surprised at just how fantastic the product is, and just how good of a quality basketball team, not just on one side of the floor, on both sides of the floor, the IQ, the basketball IQ, the fundamentals. I think the basketball program is on its way up, not just the men's program. I think the women's program is on its way up. And again, I can't even remember the last time both the men's and women's program were 20-plus win caliber at the same time.
I would agree with that completely. And, we always talk about the men's. Obviously, you and I, since I cover the men, and you work with me for a lot of the home telecasts. But John Barnes is remarkable, and I think what they've been able to do and sustain under his tenure, and even before him with Bob Bolden, rivals what Ed DeGregorio was able to do. So it's a lot of fun. We've seen a lot of nail biters recently for men's basketball that have gone our way, which is great. I mean, I'm okay with winning these home games by 10 or 15 points, and people will still have a good time even if we're not winning at the buzzer. So I think that's the best part of it now. They've taken steps of figuring out a way to win those close games. Now, I think the next step is figuring out how to put these teams away a little bit earlier and then, just kind of put them away early and then coast at home with the win.
You brought up Ed DeGregorio's name. We lost Coach D earlier this year. Are there any plans for the university to possibly erect a statue or do something in remembrance of the only guy to bring Youngstown State into a Division I NCAA basketball tournament?
I would hope, Ron. I mean, I don't know that personally here. We've not really had any discussions, obviously, as everybody well imagines right now. I think everybody's concern is over the COVID-19 and how you bringing students back and how are you managing through athletics at that time and, with the budget constraints. But I got to believe somewhere down the line that we've got, there'll be something that will be done in honor of Coach D, like they did with Coach Roselli with a statue. A very deserving man and really, I think he epitomized this university. He was such a caring guy and did things the right way and was always a lot of fun to be around. So I think in his honor, they've got to do something special. Now, when we get down to figuring out what we're going to do for games this season, promotions and whatnot, I'm sure there'll be a Coach D night. We'll probably give him a special night and honor him and bring back some of his players again.
Yeah, and I want to clarify, a lot of coaches have brought the Youngstown State to Division I tournaments, but not March Madness. The tournament, the NCAA tournament. We've never seen one on the boys basketball level. The girls have gone 3 times to the NCAA basketball tournament, and I've often said, and Rob, you feel free to chime in and agree if you want, if YSU's men's basketball team ever goes to the NCAA tournament and they have their name announced on Selection Sunday, this area will lose its ever-loving mind, and it'll be a party for a whole friggin' week.
No, I agree with you completely. I don't think people fully understand what it's like until you go through it. I've never had the opportunity to go through it. We've all been there for Selection Sunday with football and the excitement that generates, but this is a completely different level. And it would just bring tears to a lot of people's eyes, if that day ever were to come. And, everybody's excited and, there's opportunity there now. I mean, we're obviously moving closer to that instead of moving further away. And I think that's really what's created all the excitement and the buzz and, why everybody's so optimistic about basketball, because we're closer to it than we're further from it.
Rob, always a pleasure. Look forward to catching up with you soon. And just great news with Darius coming back, and he means so much to this basketball program. And obviously, with Darius coming back, the team is a very, very strong contender, not only for the Horizon League regular season, but more importantly, to win the tournament and to go into March Madness.
Yeah, and we're excited about it. And I appreciate you giving me a call and letting me come on with you. It's always fun.
All right, sir. Have a great day.
All right, buddy. Enjoy your weekend.
All right, you as well. Rob Schmidt, the voice of the YSU men's basketball program, joining us on the YSN hotline. We'll take a timeout. On the other side, we'll unpack some of the things that Rob said. We'll take some phone calls as well. 330-886-0813. It's a phone-in Friday edition of Running Point on YSNLive.com.
Ah, the details. Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods is one fine ride. Perfect cornering, superb handling, sporty and stylish, power to spare, plus awesome mileage. Yeah, jaw-droppingly beautiful lines and well-appointed with luxurious trim. Put more oomph in your life and start beholding the molding. Find your home's fine hardwood at BairdBrothers.com. storm season.
I think we're under the gun for some heavy storms over the next couple of hours.
And Storm Tracker 21 is ready.
This is probably the one we're keeping a closer eye on.
On air,
And locally, we're going to have a lot of eyes on our area.
online,
All right, let's talk high-risk futurecast and the timing of this weather.
on social media, and on our app.
Stay in the showers. I'm keeping my eye on in parts of Columbiana County.
Stay ready with Storm Tracker 21.
The severe weather threat now through around sunset this evening.
Hi everyone, this is DJ Yoakley with Your Sports Network. We appreciate your support of YSN and welcome you to the YSN family. Our broadcast streams are brought to you live at no cost to you by sponsors that are local to this community. Without the vision and generosity of our sponsors and partners, we would not be able to bring this game to you today. So please support the great businesses and leaders that are making this game possible. And if you're a business in need of great advertising and sponsorship opportunities, feel free to head over to our site for more information on the right fit for you. We are local, we are loyal, and we are live. We are YSN.
It's a phone-in Friday edition of Running Points on YSNLive.com. Ron Potesta with you. Again, many thanks to Rob Schmidt, the voice of the YSU men's basketball program, for coming on board to talk about the decision Darius Quisenberry made. A fantastic decision and a great day for the Penguins, as Darius Quisenberry has decided to stay. And I believe that the program for the next year and moving forward is going to be all kinds of fun to watch. I can't even begin to stress enough just how much fun basketball at Beagley is going to be for this year and for years to come at Youngstown State. And I think that Coach Barnes, I think that Coach Calhoun have both brought an energy, and I'm hoping that the fans will come out even more and support this program and let Beagley be a place where nobody wants to come and play basketball. I think that there's still a bit of disrespect in the Horizon League with this program. And again, if you're going to get respect, you have to earn it. And I think that Youngstown State, in some ways, last year earned that respect. And I still think there's some people in the Horizon League. There may be a couple of teams in the Horizon League that have yet to fully comprehend that YSU is in fact a team that is going to be reckoned with. And I think that this year will be really entertaining. Now, we just hope that the basketball gods, small g, will give us a full season, because I think this could be an awful lot of fun. All right, second round of the Workday Charity Open at the Muirfield Village Golf Club in Dublin, nearby Columbus. It has been suspended due to the inclement weather. And again, this golf course, it's going to play a whole lot different now, because there's all kinds of rain everywhere. And from what we understand, the rain's not stopping anytime soon. As I'm going to try to get the weather app going in terms of where the rain is. And there's thunderstorms in the vicinity. We're going to do the radar and the I was going to say the future forecast does not look very promising, at least in the next couple of hours. There's a severe thunderstorm warning in that area of Dublin, and if you do the future, there's still plenty of rain that's going to be running about the area till about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And yeah, you're probably talking a long day, where even if you get the golf, if you get it going, there's going to be some golfers that are going to be playing a lot more than 18 holes on Saturday, assuming that the rain stays away on Saturday. And we talked about this with Brian Tolnar. When there's a good amount of rain on a golf course, the golf course is now completely different from the golf course that you played prior to the rain. On a dry course, if you hit a ball down the fairway, you're going to get that 25-yard bounce where once the ball hits the fairway, it's going to skip and go a good ways. You know, you get a lot of rain on the golf course, shoot one down the fairway, it's not going to skip nearly as much. The greens are going to be a whole lot slower when you have a lot of rain, a lot of moisture on the golf course. It's going to be a whole lot slower on the greens, not a lot of bounce on the fairways. It's just a completely different golf course. And with the rain right now, when these guys get back going, and who knows when it's going to be, probably mid-afternoon, bordering on late afternoon. Now, the good news is you can play till about 8 o'clock, 8:30, before the sun completely goes down. There's still plenty of time to get round 2 in, but like I said, it's going to be a much, much different golf course now that there's been a substantial amount of rain at Muirfield Village Golf Club. Again, keep in mind, this is the first of 2 consecutive weekends of golf on the PGA Tour from Muirfield. Next week will be the Nationwide Open, and that will be back at Muirfield. Jason Kokrak shot a 2-over par in the first round, and he is once again in trouble in terms of trying to make it to another day. As it stands right now, the cut line is at 1 under par. And most of the golfers, as a matter of fact, all of the golfers have not finished. But a lot of them are in the tail end of their second round. Some of them are on the golf course halfway through, and then the other half of the golfers haven't even started. The afternoon group has not started yet because the second round is currently suspended because of inclement weather. Again, there's a severe thunderstorm warning in the Dublin, Ohio area, so that's not going to be. You're not going to be seeing golf anytime soon in the next couple of hours, as the weather is just going to continue to be showers and thunderstorms. And like we said, that's going to mean a completely different course, and it's also going to mean golfers that are going to be playing well more than 18 holes on Saturday. If they decide that you're not able to play this round, if they can't get any golf in today and you start on Saturday morning, there's going to be some golfers that potentially are going to be playing 36 holes on Saturday just to get caught up to speed. And again, the forecast is not looking quite as promising as we were hoping, as the forecast for Dublin for the weekend is supposed to be scattered thunderstorms, strong gusty winds, a 40% chance today, partly cloudy skies on Friday night. Saturday looks to be much better, mostly sunny skies, a stray shower or thunderstorm on Saturday with a high of 87, and then on Sunday it's going to be hit or miss. Scattered thunderstorms in the forecast, a 60% chance of scattered thunderstorms. So Saturday looks to be okay. Sunday could be kind of iffy because the chance of rain on Sunday is 60%, where the chance of rain on Saturday is just 20%. So the course is not going to be playing as good as it did on Thursday when the rains weren't around. It's now a completely different golf course. But the second round coverage right now suspended, and we'll keep everyone abreast to those details. Coming up in a bit, we will chat with Brian Driscoll. He's our Notre Dame guy. He writes for IrishMaven.com. Wrote an interesting article yesterday involving the fact that Notre Dame could very well see a major change in the schedule, as Notre Dame is going to try to salvage the 2020 season. Again, yesterday, the Big Ten Conference announcing that they're only going to be playing their own conference this year. There will be no non-conference games in the Big Ten. In the next day or so, as early as today, the ACC is going to follow suit. And from what I understand, the Pac-12, the Big 12, and the Southeastern Conference, they're going to fall in line as well. And, well, there's going to be 5 major conferences, the Power 5 in college football, that are all going to say that we're only going to play our own in this 2020 college football season, assuming that we have a college football season. Well, Brian Driscoll wrote an interesting article yesterday talking about Notre Dame's decision to partnering with the ACC. And even though a lot of folks criticized that, it is that partnership that could very well salvage Notre Dame's 2020 college football season. I shudder to think what Notre Dame would be if they didn't have a partnership with the Atlantic Coast Conference, because there's not a lot of independent teams. Including Notre Dame, there's currently 6 independent teams in college football. Well, even if Notre Dame didn't have an allegiance with the ACC, you're talking about 5 football games. That would be it. And unless you're playing mid-majors, you're talking about 5 football games. Now, if all of this falls into place, Notre Dame and USC, Notre Dame and Stanford would be out the window in 2020. Notre Dame and Navy, hopefully, we get an opportunity to see the midshipmen. It's just going to be very interesting. So we'll chat with Brian Driscoll, who writes for IrishMaven.com. Irish Breakdown is the website, IrishBreakdown.com. IrishBreakdown, IrishBreakdown.com. He is the publisher at Irish Breakdown and the Notre Dame channel at Sports Illustrated. Brian Driscoll will be joining us coming up in a bit. Stick around. A phone-in Friday edition of Running Point continues after this timeout.
Baird Brothers remains your source for fine hardwood products. For the time being, we're open for customer pickup only on weekdays, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., and Saturday from 9 a.m. till noon. Place your order online at BairdBrothers.com. Baird Brothers, for the place you love.
Quality, customer service, and integrity. Those are the 4 words that have driven our success since 1957 at Joe Dickey Electric.
Joe Dickey Electric is one Mahoning Valley landmark business that stays current with the requirements of our customers. Family owned and managed, we are an electrical contractor and energy solutions provider. Every member of our team adds to his or her skill set through ongoing training. Residential, commercial, industrial, automotive, and more. We keep ahead of the needs of our customers with a fleet of more than 50 vehicles and 24/7 emergency service, so you're never left in the dark.
The 4M Company, being an architect and construction manager for over 40 years, has had the opportunity to use many different electrical businesses for our projects. The depth, quality, and knowledge and attention to detail displayed by Dickey Electric makes them stand out above all the rest.
For state-of-the-art expertise and a timeless commitment to our customers, contact Joe Dickey Electric. We are everything electrical.
I'm feeling pretty good about myself, like I'm living the dream. Platform shoes, strut down the street. It's gonna get hot in here, I hope you can handle the heat.
Over the years, you watched us grow, and as we've done, so has the Myers Family Insurance team.
Thanks to all of you who have trusted our families to help you with your Medicare needs.
Myers Family Insurance looks forward to helping you now for years to come, so call our family today and remind them how cute we are.
Myers Family Insurance continues to be the area's resource for all your Medicare and retirement needs. Call today, 330-286-3044.
Welcome back to a phone-in Friday edition of Running Points on YSNLive.com. Normally we give this guy the summer off and we start talking about football in the fall, but yeah, we live in a COVID world, and I don't even know if we're going to have football in the fall, and all hell broke loose yesterday with the Big Ten announcing that they are only going to be playing their conference opponents. It's expected that the ACC will follow suit, and then all the other dominoes, the Pac-12, the Big 12, and the SEC are going to follow suit as well. What does that mean for Notre Dame? Well, let's bring in our guy that knows Notre Dame like no one else. He is the publisher at Irish Breakdown, the Notre Dame channel over at Sports Illustrated, SI.com. He is Brian Driscoll. Brian, what's going on?
Just sitting here trying to figure out who and when Notre Dame's going to play football games this year.
Yeah, I am sorry that we have taken you away from the Margarita tour and the other stuff that you know, the beach, and, well, South Bend doesn't have a beach, let's be honest. But summertime, we normally wouldn't be discussing this, but welcome to America 2020, where this dang virus has decided to really caused some serious problems, not just in general, but in the sports landscape. My goodness, all kinds of stuff potentially going on. And I guess first and foremost, were you surprised that the Big Ten dropped the hammer yesterday and said, hey, we're not even going to do the non-conference games. We're just going to play amongst ourselves, meaning that the expected game between Notre Dame and Wisconsin at Lambeau Field is now out?
I was surprised for a couple reasons. Number one is I just don't feel like there's a need right now to make that decision today, especially when you consider that if they're going to play a league-only schedule, it doesn't really alter what kind of the 12 play this year, right? So it just didn't make a lot of sense. Plus, there's supposed to be a commissioners meeting that was going to happen today, and a lot of the other league commissioners were a little upset about it because this isn't about travel. This is about uniformity in testing and consequences. Well, there was an opportunity for the commissioners to get together and say, hey, look, since the NCAA is going to show no leadership, as always, let's get together and figure out, what's working, and let's come up with a plan. And Ohio State or the jump the gun on that. And the way that college sports works is it almost forces the hand of the other conferences, because how do you say, okay, well, they're doing that, but now we're not going to? It almost is kind of like once that first ball drops, you have no choice but to follow suit, and that's most likely what's going to happen.
Well, the ACC has already said they're going to be doing it. It's just a matter of when. The Pac-12, the Big 12, the SEC, like you said, Brian, I mean, they're just going to look and say, well, if the Big Ten's doing it and the ACC is planning on doing it, we might as well do it. Well, that's bad news.
I don't think the ACC was necessarily locked into definitely doing it. That came out after the Big Ten. It had already leaked that the Big Ten was going to do it because, again, the ACC knows once one league does it, eventually we're all going to be pressured into doing it. And so I think it was more of a response to the Big Ten, whereas I think the idea would have been, hey, let's figure out a conference-only plan where we can then maintain some out-of-conference rivalries if there's uniformity amongst the 5 Power 5 conferences in testing and standards and those kind of things, and it would be workable to still have a conference-only +1 type of scenario, and I think that's where some of the frustration towards the Big Ten comes from.
So the ACC is going to probably do the same thing. Now, the good news for Notre Dame is they do have an affiliation with the ACC. Every sport, with the exception of football, is directly aligned to the ACC. And the ACC understands that Notre Dame, even though they're not a member, they are treated almost like a member of the ACC in college football. And I think the ACC is going to help Notre Dame out tremendously if, in fact, this is what we're going to be doing in 2020.
Yeah, I think, and John Crawford, the commissioner of the ACC, has already said they're going to work with Notre Dame, and his statement was as needed. That's what he said to Brett McMurphy from Stadium. And for the ACC, it's smart, and a lot of people have said there's a lot of anti-Notre Dame being independent people out there, and I'm not going to address that, but a lot of them have this notion of, well, this is when they should screw Notre Dame over and say, screw Notre Dame. Well, that's not going to work because, number one, Notre Dame can go schedule 6 teams from other independents, and they could schedule a couple of twice if they wanted to get to 10 games. They could do a home and home with a couple of teams. I mean, the Notre Dame's going to have a season this year, right? They're not going to not go without football. Number two, if the ACC is being smart about this, because if you actually get Notre Dame as a full partner, and that's what the ACC wants, you're going to want to do it with a carrot, not a stick, because playing with Notre Dame is going to be a loss for you. Notre Dame's already proven that, especially with Jack Swarbrick of the Athletic. Look at the weight he had, and he was able to throw around during the Super Conference discussion, because a lot of people say he was one of the driving forces to keep the Super Conferences from happening. And so that's just the reality. So
Brian, we got a really bad connection with the cell phone. I don't know if the weather is making this happen or not, but we'll see if we can get through this. Yeah, go ahead with your last comments, because we lost you about going into your last comments, Brian.
Yeah, basically, can you hear me a little better now, Ron? I apologize.
A little bit better, yeah.
Okay, basically, the ACC can do one of two things. Number one is, hey, Notre Dame, how many games? 5, 6, 7, 8. The other option, I think, that's been for the ACC. Hey, guys, come into our just for this year. We'll adopt you just this year. We'll put you in this league. Here's your schedule. We're going to help you out, because if you do that, then the odds of Notre Dame saying, hey, you know what, being in this league is pretty good. We do like it. That's how you're going to entice Notre Dame to win as a full-time member, because the ACC's been pretty good to Notre Dame in other sports. And if you can throw them some carrots and some bonuses and some benefits, then you're gonna be more. It's going to be more enticing for Notre Dame to make that ultimate plunge, which is what the ACC wants to happen.
Brian, obviously the ACC will help Notre Dame as much as they possibly can, and we've also talked about some of the other independents that Notre Dame can schedule. It's not going to be the glamorous caliber schedule that Notre Dame normally has. You won't see USC. You won't see Stanford. Unfortunately, you're not going to see Wisconsin. Where does Navy fit in all of this? Because that's a rivalry that is very special, not only to Navy, but to Notre Dame.
You know, I think a big part of that, Ron, is going to be determined by how many games are teams talking about playing. Are they talking about playing 9? Is it going to be 10? Are they going to try to get 12 league games? I think that's going to be if it's a 9 or a 10 team league season, then I could see a scenario in which Navy says, hey, we're still playing Army. And if you're still going to play Army, then, hey, we're still going to play Notre Dame. So I think a lot of those discussions are likely still going to happen. Are they going to bar teams from playing some of those games? That's something I'm curious about. Are they going to tell Clemson, hey, you cannot play South Carolina if the SEC was open to it? I think there's still a lot of things that have to get worked out, but I would have to, if I had to guess, Ron, I would say that this year you're not going to see Notre Dame and Navy unless the AAC is one of those leagues that say, hey, we're not going to do a conference-only schedule. We know that some teams won't play us, but then that league will then at least have some opportunities to get some of the other non-power leagues onto their games. Because I think some of those smaller leagues are going to want a league to say, hey, we'll come play Memphis, we'll come play whoever, because, you know, MAC teams, they need a payday.
Brian, obviously we don't see this very often, if ever. Is there a scenario where Notre Dame could be playing a team twice this year?
If the ACC says to Notre Dame, sorry, we can't help you out, then I think we could see something like that. We might see a home-and-home with BYU and Army. You know, you schedule all 6 of the independent teams, New Mexico State, Army, Liberty, BYU, UConn, and UMass. That's 6 games right there. And if everybody else is playing a 9 or a 10-game season, you know, maybe Notre Dame convinces one of the MAC teams, hey, come play us, we'll give you $1 million. Because I think a lot of those leagues are going to be more prone to, hey, if someone's willing to play us, we'll take it, because those teams are hurting. They can't just play in-conference games and make money the way that the Big Ten can. So I think they'll be able to put together a schedule, and then how many of those teams are able to get is going to determine whether you need to play BYU twice or Army twice. And again, I think part of it too, Ron, is there going to be a postseason? If there's going to be a postseason, then Notre Dame needs to get more games. If there's not going to be a postseason, then Notre Dame can just play their 6 or whatever the case may be, give their kids a chance to play and get film for the NFL, and then call it a season.
Well, there's always talk that, the college football landscape might not be happening until the spring of 2021. You bring in the Ivy League, who's saying, hey, we're not going to be doing anything. The football is going to be played the spring of 2021, if it's going to be played at all. The same thing on the high school level, that there were all kinds of rumors up until Wednesday, when we had the director of communications for the Ohio High School Athletic Association, and we asked, look, are you guys looking to play games in the spring of 2021? And he said, absolutely not. The only way we would do that is if Governor DeWine tells us that we have to do that. Seems to me that if you're thinking of, well, let's wait till the spring of 2021 and play, it doesn't work that way, because not only are you hurting college football, you're essentially, without knowing that you're doing it, hurting the National Football League. You're sending college football back at least 2 years, because if you're going to play in the spring of 2021 and you have a normal season, that means you have to play in the spring and fall of 2021. Football was not made to be played that long. It makes no sense, even though you want to get as much money, and it's money driven, let's be honest. You want to get as much money as possible. Well, this is a situation where if you chase money, you are going to devastate your program and your product in many ways.
I think what you're saying, Ron, right there is the heart of all of this. People keep saying it's about the well-being of young people, and it's about, doing what's right and following the science, but any of those decisions, those are science decisions. Those are political decisions. That's just a fact. And I'm not going to dive more into that other than that right there. But anyone trying to advocate for playing football in the spring is not being honest. And if they're going to adopt that, then they have to understand you're going to have to push back the 2021 season, because you can't finish in May or June and start again in August. Like you said, the human body was not meant for that. So then you got to push that back. And then what are you going to do? You're going to start fall practice during the flu season? I don't think that's a smart idea. And then you got to push that back. And then, okay, that season's going to end early. So then what happens to spring practice in 2022? Do you then have to push back the start of the 2022 season? So, but I think they would honestly be better off canceling the season than pushing it to the spring, because it makes no sense. If we care about young people, like people say that they do, then the spring would make sense for them. A lot of college players, if he's not playing in the spring, a lot of college players are not going to play their senior seasons because they're going to already be getting ready for the NFL. Same thing with a lot of high school players. They're going to be going to play college ball somewhere. They're not going to risk playing in March and April if it's going to impact their ability to then go play in the fall. It's just not going to happen, and it's going to have a domino effect of unintended consequences that's going to end up being worse than what would have happened if they would have just played it like normal, in my opinion.
And I understand where, everyone wants to chase the money, especially with the NCAA losing March Madness last year. You don't want to lose a football season. You want to be able to get the short-term financial house in order. Well, in this case, if you get your short-term financial house in order by putting the game in the springtime, long-term you have put some really, really ugly cards on the table, to which long-term you're going to be in far worse shape than you would be if you just cancel the season if it needs to be canceled and be done with it. Now, having said that, Brian, if worst-case scenario, the NCAA announces, hey, we can't do this and we're not going to allow the kids to play football in the springtime, we're just canceling the season in 2020, a lot of the ancillary programs that you normally see are not going to be seen in college athletics, and that'll be a tremendous blow to those athletes, those student athletes. But it wouldn't be it wouldn't be the end of the world if college football had to cancel the 2020 season, but it would be a whole lot closer to the end of the world if they decided, hey, we're going to wait until the spring of 2021, because the long-term damages would be far more destructive.
I think they'd both be destructive. And look, you say it's not the end of the world, but it would be for some programs. There are programs that would not – you're going to see MAC teams have to fold because they're never going to be able to recover from the loss of revenue from this season. Contracts, they're not going to get the $1 million paydays from the Power 5 schools. That's what those schools live off of. And you lose football money, those schools can't have sports, and they can still have football, but they're not going to be able to have any. It's going to be the world of athletics for some programs. You will not have 130 Division I football teams coming back in future seasons if you cancel this season. And I think the same thing is true if you have it in the spring. If you had it in the spring, I think that would be a really bad thing for a lot of sports. But I think that both are really pretty devastating decisions. And honestly, in my opinion, they're just neither of them are necessary. I feel like we're creating more problems than we say we're trying to solve with a lot of these decisions.
Brian, could this COVID virus unintentionally allow the NCAA to visit having the Power 5 conferences and maybe one mid-major that's really solid, and then that's it as far as Division I, and the other mid-major conferences slide back into FCS, joining Youngstown State and North Dakota State, and you have a larger amount of FCS programs, and you only have the select 40, 50, 60 FBS programs. Could COVID-19 unintentionally do this in your mind?
It wouldn't do it from the standpoint of the NCAA making that decision. The NCAA won't make that decision. They don't have the power to make that decision. What I think it could happen is the 5 power conferences can see how continually inept the NCAA is and realize, hey, we did all this on our own anyway. The NCAA gave us no guidance. They did nothing but stand in our way and kept us from making decisions that were more practical. And it's almost like the state versus federal government debate. You know what I mean? Like, hey, we don't need that big bureaucracy in Indianapolis, so we're going to break off and we're going to go do our own thing. And the NCAA can take their ball and go home. And then those teams at the mid-majors and those leagues, those teams would remain part of the NCAA, and the Power 5 conferences would go off and do their own thing. That's been something that people have been wanting to do for a long time, and I think what's going to happen with this COVID situation is a lot of things that people were hoping to get accomplished, they now have that excuse built in. So a lot of colleges have wanted to take away media access, right, because they're starting to produce their own content. Well, this is a great idea. It's going to start happening in the next couple months, in my opinion, Ron, where they're going to start saying, sorry, can't have press in the press box, no interviews, all those kind of things. Some of it makes sense, some of it is not, but a lot of it is we're going to use what's happening now as an opportunity to accomplish something that we wanted to accomplish for some time anyway, and now we have an excuse to use for it.
It seems to me that the NCAA is then in a very interesting situation. So let me ask your expert opinion, because obviously you're very much in tune to what's going on, not only with Notre Dame, but on and off the college football landscape. If you're running the NCAA, Brian, what's some of the things that you would want to change to make it better, make the NCAA a better establishment for the colleges?
You know, I think we're past that point, Ron. I think the NCAA has dropped the ball so many times and done so many just dumb, stupid decisions that I just don't see why these Power 5 conferences have a need for them anymore. You know, every decision that they make seems to be the wrong one. And right now, when these colleges have to go through tournaments and do all these things, they're splitting the money with the NCAA. Well, you know, hey, forget that. Let's start our own league where we're keeping all that money to ourselves, and then all the money that the leagues are, you know, that the networks are giving us for these games, it's just coming to us. You know, so let's cut out the middleman who's proven to be incompetent over and over and over again with investigations and they're gonna hammer Notre Dame for reporting a violation that they discovered and fixed immediately, and then let North Carolina slide for something far more egregious. Just the stupidity and the irrationality in so many of their decisions is, I think it's too far gone. I don't know if the NCAA can save itself. I just don't think there's enough leadership there. It's a big corporation. It's no longer about young people and doing what's best for them. Honestly, Ron, I don't think there is a way to save it. I think it's just a matter of time before the Power 5 conferences realize we don't need them. We're going to go do our own thing. Now, that could get very interesting for Notre Dame, because that's one program who I really don't know what going to decide to do, because most likely if those programs broke off, it would involve paying players. And that's something Notre Dame thus far has been very, very adamant against.
Yeah, and I was going to say, if those conferences break off, where does it leave Notre Dame? Does Notre Dame finally join a conference and becomes a part of the ACC? Does Notre Dame stay independent and remind all of the other Power 5 conferences, hey, we're here and we'd love to play you? I mean, that's kind of an interesting scenario. Where does this leave Notre Dame? Because if the Power 5 conferences break off and they decide that they don't want anything to do with Notre Dame unless they join one of their conferences, that makes things really different for Notre Dame.
It certainly does. I think Notre Dame joining a conference, as much as I have to say it, I think it's inevitable. It's going to happen at some point in time. I think if the Power 5 break off, Notre Dame would be in a, like you said, a very interesting situation. I think ultimately it would decide to join a league. I think the ACC would be in the league. But again, I don't know if the leagues are going to stay the same. I mean, is there this massive shift that people talk about? It's going to be just a chaotic time that I don't know what it's all going to look like at the end. But I think ultimately money is going to talk, and Notre Dame's going to realize that their best opportunity to make the most amount of money is to join a conference and be part of the big boy schools. And so, Notre Dame fans need to just come to grips with the fact that eventually that's going to happen. And the way things are going right now, it may happen sooner rather than later.
Come September, do we have college football, Brian?
I think so, because I think eventually the money is going to end up winning out over the politics. That's my ultimate decision. Now, whether it's 9 games, 10 games, I don't know, but I do believe we'll have college football in the fall.
Now, let me ask you, because obviously, and we discussed this the last time you were on. How do you deal with the fans? Do you have the fans sign a waiver? Do you allow 100% of your stadium to be filled? Do you only put half of your stadium? And if you're only going to put half of your stadium, what do you do with the season ticket holders? There's an awful lot that is going to be answered or be questioned in terms of what we're going to do with the fans.
Yeah, ultimately, I think it's going to be limited fans or no fans. I think that's ultimately what's going to happen. Again, I don't necessarily agree with a lot of that, but that's just what's going to happen, because there's just too much potential liability, and it would be a bit chaotic. I think ultimately we're going to see a situation where there's either no fans or limited fans. The NFL is already talking about having 15 to 25% capacity in their stadiums, putting tarps around to make sure people can't get within a certain range of players. And some of that stuff makes a lot of sense. If you're really worried about the spread of a virus, then, you want to make sure you create as much distance as possible between the players and the fans. So I think we'll see some of that stuff. But I just think at the end of the day, yeah, they're going to lose money on the revenue from having people in the stadium. But losing that money and still getting the TV money is going to make a lot more sense than losing both.
Brian Driscoll, our guest. Brian, before we let you go, Notre Dame having a little bit of trouble recruiting-wise. Can we talk a little bit about the recruiting at Notre Dame?
Yeah, that's being kind. Notre Dame is having a really hard time. Notre Dame has not landed an offensive skill commitment since the weekend they played USC back in October. And the only 2 commitments they've landed on offense since Chip Long was fired in December or 2 3-star offensive linemen, where they beat out programs like Minnesota, Iowa, and Northwestern for them. So, yeah, it's been a struggle, and the excuse that they're using is it's COVID-19. They can't get guys on campus. It's just funny to me that Notre Dame seems to be the only big-time program that's suffering from that. Ohio State never visited campus. They have a commitment from a top 100 quarterback from Arizona, never visited campus. But for some reason, Notre Dame can't get kids. But they did hire Mike Mickens in March, and he's recruited hard, and he's got commitments from 2 talented DBs, from one from Maryland, one from Florida, and one from Florida never. So once was putting in the work, he's been able to get kids. But the reality is they just don't have a good offensive staff right now when it comes to recruiting, and overall their recruiting is in big trouble, and it's not looking like it's going to get better anytime soon.
Is this a direct hit on not just Brian Kelly, but his decision to bring in and I'm going to be kind when I say this, inexperienced offensive coordinator?
No, it's a combination of decisions. Number one is, Notre Dame has a head coach that doesn't put in nearly the work on the recruiting trail that other top head coaches do. Sweeney, Ryan Day, Jim Harbaugh, those kind of coaches, just constantly. So, you've got a 27-year-old Tommy Rees. I don't care how hard of a recruiter he might be or how hard he might work. He has no resume, no pedigree, and he's supposed to go toe-to-toe with the staff at Clemson, the staff at Ohio State, the staff at Michigan, the staff at Oklahoma. It's not going to happen. And I don't think he was a strong recruiter to begin with. And it's also that, you lose Harry Hiestand and you replace him with Jeff Quinn. Well, not only has Jeff Quinn not lived up to the standard as far as a position coach, he's not been the recruiter that Harry Hiestand was and that you need to be at Notre Dame. So it's just a combination of decisions. The reality is, Ron, Brian Kelly made some great hires after the 2016 debacle. He hasn't changed. As much as he says he's changed, he hasn't. What changed was Mike Elko, Chip Long, Clark Lee, and Matt Bayless is the strength coach. Well, two of those three coaches that have had such a big impact on recruiting are now gone. And then Clark Lee's going to be not too far behind. Nothing except Brian Kelly and control hires. The guys get flat out coach and recruit, and those guys are slowly but surely going away. Plus, they've lost Harry Hiestand in that same time too. So that's really, to me, what's going on.
It's not painting a very pretty picture for Notre Dame after 2020, Brian.
It's not. I mean, and look, the reality is Brian Kelly was backed into a corner after 2016. His decisions with Brian Van Gordon, with the strength program, with a lot of different decisions, Mike Stanford made a lot of poor decisions that put Notre Dame into that 4-8 situation. And he was forced into a situation where he had to go outside and hire coaches and even get strong hires. But since then, more hires than not have not been that good. He's made some good hires. I like the John McNulty hire at tight end. I like Mike Mickens at cornerbacks, but he's made a lot of poor decisions, lazy decisions. And I'll say this: you knew who I wanted to hire when Chip Long was let go. They should have hired Joe Moorhead. If they wanted Joe Moorhead, they could have had Joe Moorhead. Since Joe Moorhead was hired in Oregon, they got 8 4-star offensive players. 8. Notre Dame has 0. So it's just those kind of things where Brian Kelly's arrogant. I don't know if it's arrogance, if it's just not being plugged into the program. I don't know what the reasons are. I just know that the decisions he tends to make don't look good. And the longer he stays at Notre Dame, going down this path, the closer we get to what happened back in 2012, where they won in 2012 because of the talent Charlie Weiss recruited. Let's be real about that. Okay? And as they got away from all those players, they started going down, 9-5. 9-4, 8-5. Then they had that 10-3 year because of the recruiting class that they got because of the 12-0 season made up of Charlie Weiss players. And then when a lot of those dudes went to the NFL, the next year they fell off the cliff because they couldn't mask the poor coaching anymore. They didn't have enough talent to mask the poor coaching, and we're slowly heading down that direction again, and that's unfortunate.
Brian, always a pleasure. We look forward to catching up with you as we get closer and closer to hopefully a college football season. And when stuff breaks like yesterday, we'll make sure that we have you on the speed dial.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me on, Ryan.
You got it, brother. Brian Driscoll, you can read his work. He is the publisher at Irish Breakdown, the Notre Dame channel, over at Sports Illustrated, and you can go to irishbreakdown.com, IRISHBREAKDOWN, irishbreakdown.com. You're not painting a pretty picture after 2020 for Notre Dame, I can tell you that right now. And look, I've said this for years, and Brian Driscoll is only repeating what I've said, and bang the drum a little bit louder. Brian Kelly is not the ultimate answer for Notre Dame. He just is not. He is nowhere near the caliber of coach that a Dabo Swinney is. He does not work nearly as hard recruiting-wise as the Clemsons, the Michigans, the Ohio States, the Alabamas, the quote, blue blood college football programs. It's just the case. It's sad, but it's true. All right, 330-886-0813. We'll take some phone calls after this. You're listening to a phone-in Friday edition of Running Point on YSNLive.com.
They say American craftsmanship is making a comeback. Of course, at Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods, it never went away.
People are floored by Baird Brothers' authentic hardwood floors. They stare at our stairs and adore our doors. Baird Brothers reflects 3 generations of family craftsmanship. Visit our huge in-stock selection in person or at BairdBrothers.com.
Baird Brothers, our family's heritage, your family's home.
Planning a project around your home or rental property? Trust the electrical service to the local experts with 62 years of serving the Mahoning Valley. Joe Dickey Electric is your local go-to source for responsive, reliable residential electrical work. From everyday maintenance and repairs to new installations, electrical upgrades, and safety inspections, no job is too big or too small. Call Joe Dickey Electric today, 800-549-3976, or visit DickeyElectric.com. That's DickeyElectric.com.
Myers Family Insurance knows the importance of a great team.
Our team continues to grow to help you with your Medicare and retirement needs.
The annual election period is here, so it's all hands on deck to make sure your plans still meet your needs for 2020.
Call us today.
Welcome back to a phone-in Friday edition of Running Point on YSNLive.com. Hello. With you till 3 o'clock, taking your phone calls, 330-886-0813. Many, many thanks to Rob Schmidt, who tuned in and called in the 12 o'clock hour to talk about Darius Quisenberry coming back into the fold for Youngstown State University. And it was good to see DQ coming back. And that will be fantastic news for the basketball program at Youngstown State. We just had on Brian Driscoll from IrishBreakdown.com, and not a pretty picture at all for Notre Dame, and the very strong possibility of not only things changing this year, but the long-term landscape of the Power 5 conferences breaking away from the NCAA and saying, hey, we're done with this. We don't want any more from the NCAA. We're going to go on our own path and do things on our own. It's coming. It's definitely coming. What does that mean for Notre Dame? Pretty good chance Notre Dame then is going to have to join a conference, or they aren't going to be part of this. And who knows? Maybe the Power 5 conferences decide to have 16 teams in each conference. I mean, I'm going to spitball right now. 16 times 5 is 80. So you would be looking at 80 teams that would be considered non-NCAA teams where, again, you would, as Brian so eloquently put it, you would not have to give your money to the NCAA. If your team goes to the playoffs, or if your league goes to the playoffs, everything stays within your league. If you get some money, it stays in your hands and not the NCAA's hands. I think that it's coming. It's most definitely coming. More importantly, the talent level and what to expect at Notre Dame, that in and of itself is a little frightening. You know, we go back to 2012 when, in the BCS days, Notre Dame was undefeated. They played Alabama in the national championship game. Now, obviously, they got run out of the stadium by Alabama. But after that, they had a couple of decent years and then fell off the cliff. There is the possibility, and all you got to do is look in the tea leaves, i.e. the recruiting, where Notre Dame has not recruited a offensive skill position player since the weekend where USC and Notre Dame played. last year. That's not good. That is definitely not good. And you can sit back and say, well, COVID-19. Well, COVID-19 hasn't stopped the Ohio States and all the other blue blood schools from getting their players. It's a BS reason. And I hate to say it, but the future of Notre Dame in terms of their success after this year, not so good. Not so good. And I said this. I mean, look, Tommy Rees is a good kid. But Tommy Rees has no business being the offensive coordinator at Notre Dame. I don't care if he can recruit out his wazoo. He has no business being the offensive coordinator. He has no resume, no experience. You're expecting him to go up against the elite defensive minds of college football? To say nothing of the fact that you haven't recruited anyone of significance in a while. Add those two things together, this doesn't equal out to be something special. Trust me, there are some dark days ahead in terms of the wins and losses for Notre Dame after 2020, and it all falls on Brian Kelly. It just said it before. He ain't the guy for the job. He doesn't hustle enough. He's lazy when it comes to recruiting. He just is. He does not work as hard as some of the other coaches at blue blood universities. And until that changes, I don't think Notre Dame is going to be anything special. It's sad, but it's true. All right, let's go to Champ. Champ, you're on the Friday edition of Running Point. What's up, brother?
Hey, Ron, I didn't get all of the Notre Dame interview, but just fill me in on this, because this leaving the NCAA and what you call it, the five power conferences.
Yeah.
What's and I guess it's a little bizarre, but how many? What are they going to do in terms of how are they going to divide this up, and what kind of conferences? What's going on with that?
Well, the Power Five conferences would essentially tell the NBA to get lost, and they would form their own. They would form their own establishment where they wouldn't have to give any of their money to the NCAA. They wouldn't have the inconsistencies of being put on probation. They would police themselves, and essentially the leagues would be their own separate entity from the NCAA.
What are they talking about in terms of conferences and how they? What's the discussion on that?
Well, the Power Five conferences would remain. I mean, they would probably bring in more teams, but they would be completely different from the NCAA. Now that opens up a lot of avenues. Obviously, the NCAA would be hurt by this because they would no longer have the Power Five conferences under their thumb. More importantly, if you look forward, the idea of a recruit or the college players getting paid, that would be something that would probably be a lot closer to reality if the Power Five conferences determined that they were tired of the NCAA and they wanted to move away and create their own organization.
But you said that because currently I think there's 65 Division I power teams right now. 65, I believe.
Yeah, there's 14 in the ACC. There's 14 in the Big Ten, so that's 28. There's 12 in the Pac-12, so that's 40. There's 14 in the SEC, that's 54. There's 64 teams because and
Notre Dame would be 65,
and 65.
Right?
Notre Dame would be 65.
So they're talking then going to 80.
Well, I don't know what the exact number would be, but I'm sure that if they decided to do this, you would probably see a landscape where the five conferences would have 16 teams, and then you would go from there. And Notre Dame at that point would have to determine, all right, do we want to join the Power Five conferences and officially move away from the NCAA, or do you stay an independent and you stay under the umbrella of the NCAA.
Well, but who would determine, like, for example, Notre Dame, who would determine what conference Notre Dame would be in? Would it be Notre Dame or would it be the Power 5?
Well, I'm sure Notre Dame would get some suitors. I mean, they would
right.
all inevitably go to whoever is the most interested. And, you know, I mean, let's be honest, the ACC is pretty much the heavy favorite if Notre Dame would decide to join a conference because they're affiliated with the ACC in all sports except for football. And the ACC is going to help Notre Dame as much as they can should the Power 5 conferences, and it looks like they're going to do this because the Big Ten jumped the gun a little early and said that they would only play their conference opponents. It looks more and more like the Power 5 conferences are going to fall in line with the Big Ten.
And I guess my question is, let's say that the Big Ten wants Notre Dame, the ACC wants Notre Dame. Who would be like the NCAA? Who would determine where they would ultimately end up?
Ultimately, I think Notre Dame would pretty much determine which conference they would go to, and I mean, you would extend just like any other entity. If a conference extends the invitation for you to join the conference, should you decide to join the conference, then you would immediately or 1 year later go into that conference and go from there. If it's Notre Dame, they're already in the ACC in all sports except for football. It wouldn't be that much of a transition for Notre Dame to say, hey, we're officially in the ACC. And who knows, what's going on this year in college football may very well push the envelope for Notre Dame to, in fact, join the ACC.
I agree. I think scholastically, I think that makes sense, and I like the conference. But I guess I'm back to my original question. If there's a question about eligibility or a question about a certain student or student athlete, is there going to be ultimately a board that determines that?
Well, yeah. I mean, if they break off onto their own, obviously they would have a commissioner or they would have a board, and they would determine, okay, we're going to be doing things along the same lines, but we're going to be handling things a lot better. Because, and Brian's 100% right, the NCAA has become a useless organization. They have dropped the ball so often on so many different aspects. It's turned college athletics into a partial joke with their inconsistencies. And should the Power 5 conferences decide enough is enough, and we're moving forward without the NCAA, that makes things really interesting because now where do the mid-majors go if they want a serious payoff? I mean, let's be honest. Youngstown State University, the teams in the Mid-American Conference. We brought this up. You know, if Notre Dame doesn't get a lot of help from the ACC and they determine that they can only play so many teams based on a decision that in all likelihood is coming down the pike, and that the other four power conferences are going to sit back and say, we're only going to play our own conference. Well, does Notre Dame reach out to the Mid-American Conference and say, hey, Akron or Kent State or Bowling Green, here's $1 million, come to South Bend and play us? Yeah, that would probably work. Well, if these Power 5 conferences do succeed from the NCAA, those days are gone. I can't imagine the NCAA would allow what's left in Division I. Can't imagine the NCAA would allow any of their NCAA-sanctioned schools to play any of those other schools that left the NCAA.
Yeah, and I wonder what would happen if you would have, because currently, as you know, if you play in a Division I AA formerly, and you want to transfer, you don't have to sit out a year. Would either side allow transfers of players? And when you say police themselves, I mean, how is that going to work in terms of policing themselves?
I don't know. I mean, this is uncharted territory. Obviously,
that's a scary thought.
Yeah,
It's a scary thought.
It's a very scary thought, and unfortunately, this is what it's come down to. because the NCAA hasn't done its job in terms of the Power 5 conferences. They've dropped the ball, and the Power 5 conferences feel like they can do a better job on their own. And it's the day is coming, it would appear, that the Power 5 conferences are going to sit back and say, you know what, we think we can do a better job, so we're going to secede from the NCAA. I hope it doesn't happen, but Brian Driscoll is painting a very interesting picture where perhaps we see this very close in the near future.
Yeah, the policing themselves is a scary thought, because you got a team like Penn State and Ohio State who probably be in the same conference, let's say, and there's rumors that a Penn State player may have done something, taken money to get to Penn State. But then who does the investigating? I mean, at least the NCAA was potentially a third party, but I don't know. That'd be a scary situation where you got to police yourselves and what is wrong, what is right, and I don't know. There's just a lot of quotes. I don't know how they're going to handle that situation.
Yeah, and again, it's down the road, and if it happens, it would be down the road, and a lot of parameters would have to be set, and who knows what happens. But I'm concentrating on the right now, and the right now is let's try to get through a 2020 season in the fall, because as we mentioned, if you try to play football in the spring, long-term damage to college football is going to be a hell of a lot more than if you were to say, okay, we can't play 2020, so we're going to have to cancel the 2020 college football season. I think that both scenarios are going to be a nightmare, but I think you would have far more damage if you played in the spring of 2021 than if you canceled the 2020 season altogether.
Oh, you think so? You think they would be better off not to play any football than play in the spring?
I truly believe that, because I think that the long-term damage would be far more devastating than if you were to have no football in 2020. Because again, if you only have football in the springtime, that means you got to back the 2021 season up, and then you got to back the 2022 season up, and there's a chance you may even have to back the 2023 season up, albeit a little less each time, but you would still have a residual effect, which would probably last until 2025.
But how would you handle all the seniors if we wiped out the entire 2020 season? What would you do with them?
Well, I mean, obviously, the same would apply with the spring sports. I mean, if you want to play another year, I'm sure that they would probably redshirt everyone, or say, okay, you have one more year of eligibility, and if you choose to use it, great. If you choose not to use it, good luck in your future endeavors, and we'll go from there. Yeah,
it is, because as we talked before, it's a domino effect with high school, and it's like we put the whole season on hold everywhere. I mean, it's like everyone. I mean, obviously, the high school kids can't go back to high school, right?
No, but again, if you put high school football in the spring, number one, you're not going to have a lot of seniors who are committed to going to college to play high school football for their senior year. Yeah. They won't do it. Because if they did do it, then they would undoubtedly be redshirted, because you would. There's not a college coach in America worth his or her salt that would sit back and say, "Oh yeah, this kid played spring ball and played his senior year in the springtime. Yeah, we're going to let him play all the way to December." That's not going to happen. Football was not meant to be played that long, so you would be redshirted. If you played in the springtime. So a lot of those kids ultimately wouldn't play if they're committed to playing football in the fall in a college. So that, and then, okay, if you're playing in the springtime, now you're going to turn around and tell the high school players and the high school teams, okay, the season just ended in June. All right, take a month off, and now you're going to play another season. No, you can't do that. You're not going to you're not going to just take 1 month off and then start your two-a-days all over again and play a season. That's not how it works. If it does work like that, be prepared for devastating injuries and devastating consequences. That's why the OHSAA doesn't want any part of football being played in the spring, because if you do, you got to back things up again for the next 3 to 5 years in order to finally catch up to the fact of a normal football schedule. It would be a long time before you got that normal schedule again.
Now, I would assume if let's say the college football season does not happen this year, then normally I think it was you have to have play 2 years to be able to play in the NFL. Is that what the current rule is?
Yeah, you have to. Your class had to be 3 years in college, so
Okay.
you had to be through 3 years of college. Doesn't matter how much you've played or how long you've played, but your class had to have gone through 3 years of college.
So they allow them, the players that would normally, if they had played, to satisfy that requirement, would they let them then go to the NFL, the ones that wanted to, even though they didn't meet the 3-year thing because the season was canceled?
I mean, if their class has gone 3 years into college, then they would be eligible. I mean, for the Buckeyes, that would be the redshirt sophomore year for their quarterback from Georgia. Let's say that the 2020 season is canceled. If that's the case, and he decides that he wants to go into the National Football League draft, he's allowed to.
Oh, okay. Well, I finally found something that would satisfy me then. Right. I think he's. You know what? I think he's ready for the pros, man. Go for it.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. I'm a little more concerned, and Brian brought this up. As a Notre Dame fan, I'm really concerned with the lack of recruiting that's going on at Notre Dame. And you can sit back and say, well, COVID-19 doesn't have anything to do with this, because if that's the case, why are some of the other blue-blooded schools able to get top 100 recruits?
Well, but I understand the Notre Dame situation this year, and maybe I'm wrong, is that they have a good recruiting class, but they only have, 13 or 12 guys, and that's all. I mean, they can't have a huge class this year because of the amount of that are returning. And if they had this class at 20 or 21 players, it would be, and I think it's ranked, 13th now, that they could be high. But they do have a 5-star quarterback coming in.
Yeah, but the class of 2021 and beyond is not good. They have not drafted or recruited a skill position player on offense since the Notre Dame SC game last year. So this isn't good. And again, they've made some poor decisions with the coaching staff, and some of the coaches have moved on. Again, the whole idea of Tommy Rees being the offensive coordinator, that is going to come back to bite Notre Dame in the worst way, because this kid is not ready to be an offensive coordinator. He just isn't.
I guess we'll find out, because he hasn't started yet, right?
Yeah, he hasn't started, but his resume wasn't all that good. So.
Yeah, I just look at it for where they're at now and where they were 6-7 years ago. I think they're much better, but I still think they need more 5-star guys to get up to the top tier. I think they're in that second tier right now, which is anywhere between 6 and 15, if you want to 7 and 15 ranking wise, but they're not at that top tier. But how many? I mean, to me, college football in the last 5 years is all about Clemson, Ohio State, the Southeastern Conference, and Oklahoma, maybe, if you want to throw them in there.
Yeah.
Other than that, who else has got a chance to win the national championship? It's like the NBA almost to me.
Yeah, and if the Pac-12 ever decides to get a team that's really good, they might throw their hat into this. But right now, it's a Clemson, LSU/Alabama. Every once in a while, some other teams in the SEC will show up.
Yeah.
Ohio State, every once in a while, a Wisconsin or a Penn State shows up. Oklahoma, every once in a while, a Texas will show up, and that's about it. I mean, that's about it. And The other schools, they have a mountain to climb if they want to get to relevance in college football.
Yeah, the only team, I think since they started doing the two-man playoff in 06, whenever that started, Ohio State's the only Big Ten team that has won a playoff game.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, Michigan State went to the playoffs and got destroyed. I don't think Penn State.
Oklahoma's like 0-5 in their last 5 playoff games or something.
I don't think Penn State's gone to the playoffs yet.
No.
Michigan hasn't gone to the playoffs yet. Wisconsin got beat one and done. Michigan State one and done. Yeah, Ohio State's the only team in the Big Ten that has won a playoff game or had any kind of playoff success.
Right, and Alabama's won playoff games. Florida's won playoff games. Auburn's won playoff games. LSU's won playoff games. Georgia, I'm not sure, but
Georgia went to the national title game. They beat Oklahoma, so they've won a playoff game or two.
Right, so there's 5 teams that combined have have at least one playoff game than the rest of the teams in college football.
Well, that's why the SEC is the best conference in college football.
It is.
It just is.
Yeah, okay.
Hey, let me ask you, Champ, with the Eastern Buckeye Conference, and that's the conference that's Salem, Minerva, West Branch, Alliance, Carrollton, Marlington. Canton South is leaving the conference following the 2021-2022 school year. It's pretty obvious the Eastern Buckeye Conference is in shaky ground, and if I'm Salem and West Branch, you can have a pretty nice conference and start a pretty nice conference if you have Salem, West Branch, Howland, and Canfield, and all those 4 schools to get together, form a conference, bring in Alliance, which would be the 5th school. If you want Marlington, I think Marlington would be an outstanding selection. Minerva's not too far away. Now, Carrollton, now you're getting a little deeper into the fray, but if you included the 6 teams that were left in the EBC, Alliance, Carrollton, Marlington, Minerva, Salem, and West Branch, and you added Canfield and Howland, okay, Howland is the northernmost team, but under the circumstances, it beats being independent.
Yeah, I'm not sure you may know better than me, but who has been Salem's main rivals and West Branch's main rivals lately in football?
Salem and West Branch, and Salem and Alliance. That's Minerva's. I mean, Minerva's Minerva. Their football program isn't all that great. Marlington has a pretty nice rivalry with Salem going on because Marlington's a solid program. Honestly, even if you don't include Howland, if you have these 6 teams along with Canfield, that's not a bad conference. And Canfield's looking to get into a conference. I mean, if it were up to me, Canfield and Howland would be right there with Boardman, Fitch, and Harding. But if you want Canfield to think outside the box, the Eastern Buckeye Conference wouldn't be the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, the conferences lately for me has been like an Easter egg hunt. Every year it's like, where are they at? It's I remember the days when you could pencil in the conferences, but every year they change around or whatever. I guess it is what it is, but frustrating. I wish they, and I don't know how you get any type of good more rivalries develop when teams are moving around, but it just seems like Salem's been kind of like on another planet lately because of the conference they've been in, whatever. But anyways, it changes, and I'm still not confident that football is going to be played anywhere, anytime this year.
Well, we'll see. I mean, and we'll see what happens. It should be entertaining, to say the least.
Okay, well, thanks for your help, and I'm looking forward to the Tigers. I hope they play.
Appreciate the call.
Okay, buddy.
330-886-0813. The second round of the Workday Charity Open is back underway. We have some folks in the clubhouse as Colin Morikawa is your clubhouse leader after shooting a 7 under in round number 1. He shoots 6 under In the second round, Morikawa is in the clubhouse at 13 under par. And again, more golfers are getting their way onto the golf course. And as we go through the standings, right now the cut line is at 1 under par. Now, I would expect a couple of more delays because there's pop-up showers that are going to be hitting the Columbus suburbs anytime now, and I'm sure that the pop-up showers will slow things down considerably, as Jason Kokrak is now going to be on the golf course at 3:31 this afternoon. Barring any more suspended play, Jason Kokrak would be golfing, starting the second round at 3:31 this afternoon. That is when he is scheduled to golf at 3:31. Justin Rose, who I picked for this weekend, also the pick of Brian Tolnar. Justin Rose went 2 over in round number 1. He is supposed to be starting his second round at 2:36 this afternoon. 2:36. So there you go. Second round coverage down in Dublin of the Workday Charity Open. All right, we'll take a timeout, be back with more. It is a phone-in Friday edition of Running Point on ysnlive.com. Back in a bit.
Hey, my Ohio friends, it's Mike Ditka, and I know great talent and heart when I see it. I can tell you from firsthand experience, there are average real estate agents, then there are true champions. Kelly Warren is one of those champions, and you have her right there in your own backyard. Kelly outmarkets and outsells every agent in the Mahoning Valley. If Kelly can't sell your home at a price and deadline you agree to, Kelly will buy it. Get your home sold. Call Kelly Warren today at 717-2689 or go online to kellysoda.com and start packing.
You can feel it. Baird Brothers' traditional craftsmanship. You can see it. Baird Brothers' timeless style. And you can afford it. And find everything at BairdBrothers.com. Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods is real hardwood, yet beautifully affordable. Floors, moldings, interior doors, bar rails, and stair parts. All within your means and without a care. Start at BairdBrothers.com. You have made it. Your home.
Teams work hard and give it all they've got. Well, so does ours, because 21 Sports and YSN give you extra effort when covering local sports. 21 Sports and YSN, winning coverage of our Valley's teams.
Welcome back to a phone-in Friday edition of Running Point on ysnlive.com. Let's switch gears and go to baseball. Buster Posey is the newest member of Major League Baseball players who have decided that he will not play this year. Buster Posey, the father of newborn twins, and he believes that the risk is not worth the reward, citing the newborn twins. So Buster Posey is the latest to sit back and say, we're not really looking to play baseball this year. And again, I'm going to be really, really curious to see how this goes. It is a situation that I'm not convinced that we are going to have a complete 60-game schedule. I don't think that we're going to have that, and there's a lot of players that have flat out said, look, I'm uncomfortable right now playing Major League Baseball and doing this. I'm very uncomfortable right now because of the fact that there are more positive cases, and again, you have to look at certain aspects of this. Are there more positive cases? Absolutely, there are. Are there fewer deaths because of this? Absolutely, there is. And now you have to look at this and say, okay. Historically, the virus has not done a lot of damage to those 40 years of age and younger. Not to say that it wouldn't. I'm not going to be that obtuse. There are some people that have lost their lives under the age of 40 due to COVID. That's a fact. And the players are going to they're going to make their own mind up. Look, Mike Trout, he and his wife are anxiously awaiting the birth of their firstborn child in August. It wouldn't surprise me if Mike Trout decided that he was going to pull the plug on the season. It's one of those things that might not come to pass. Where if we do have a season, we may very well not have an entire season, and if we do, there may be some players of significant prominence that are not willing to play for whatever reason. And again, the other part of this is respect the reason. I'm not gonna give a player a hard time if he feels that he's not comfortable and okay, if he's a superstar and he's not comfortable, I don't think that person should be given all kinds of grief. It's everyone is going to do what they're comfortable with doing. Now, the good news in all of this is the 2021 schedule is out, and the Major League Baseball season in 2021 is going to begin on April the 1st. The Pirates are going to be at Wrigley taking on the Chicago Cubs. Meanwhile, the Indians are going to be in Detroit taking on the Tigers. And that would be April 1st. The 2nd would be an off day. The Indians and the Pirates would both be in action in Detroit and Chicago, respectively, April the 3rd and on into April the 4th, and the season again starting on April 1st, which is April Fool's Day, which, man, a lot of cool things could happen. Again, I mentioned this last night. Let's say that the owners lock the players out prior to spring training in 2021 as the pending disaster with the labor negotiations comes around. Let's say the owners decide they want to get cute and they lock the players out. The old April Fool's Day joke. Hey, the season starts April 1st. Yeah, the season starts today. April Fools. Yeah. Opening the door for that, but the Major League Baseball season will begin on Thursday, April the 1st. And for this year, the Major League Baseball season is going to begin 2 weeks from yesterday, July the 23rd. 2 weeks from yesterday is when the Major League Baseball season is going to get going. And that will be a doubleheader of games involving the Yankees and the Washington Nationals. We'll play game one of a doubleheader, and then the Giants will play the Dodgers in game number 2. That will be on Thursday, July the 23rd, and then a full boatload of games on Friday, July the 24th, including the Indians playing their first game of the 60-game season against Kansas City. That'll be a 7:10 start from Progressive Field. Meanwhile, the Pirates are going to be on the road as the Bucs will be in St. Louis taking on the Cardinals. 2 weeks from tonight, the Pirates will open up the 2020 the condensed 2020 season. The Pirates will be in St. Louis, an 8:15 start against the St. Louis Cardinals. And again, the baseball season begins on July 23rd, and 2 weeks from today, we'll have Major League Baseball involving our regional teams. The Indians hosting Kansas City at 7:10, and the Pirates in St. Louis to take on the Cardinals beginning at 8:15. So there you go. Some of the other games on Friday, 2 weeks from tonight. The Braves would play the Mets. That's a 4:10 start. Bravo to the Mets for understanding that it's okay to play a day game. It just is. It's freaking opening day. Why are you playing night baseball on opening day? The Tigers playing the Reds at 6:10. The Blue Jays and the Tampa Bay Rays at 6:40. The Marlins and the Phillies at 7:05. Brewers and the Cubs from Wrigley at 7:10. The Orioles and the Red Sox from Boston at 7:30. The Rockies and the Rangers an 8:05 start. The Twins and the White Sox an 8:10 start. Pirates and the Cardinals an 8:15 start. Mariners taking on the Astros. That's a 9:10 start. The Diamondbacks and the Padres at 9:10, which is actually 6:10 locally. The Giants and the Dodgers a 9:40 start. The Angels and the Athletics at 10:10. Those are all the games that are going to be played on Friday, July the 24th, as Major League Baseball begins in earnest 2 weeks from today. And I was looking on my timeline. Last year at this time, the All-Star game was being played 1 year ago tonight. Actually, I take that back. 1 year ago, yesterday, the All-Star game was being played. And yeah, here we are 1 year later on July the 10th, and we're 2 weeks away or 13 days away from the start of a 60-game Major League Baseball season. And it's interesting to see what happens. But again, Major League Baseball deciding that they have released their schedule for 2021. April Fool's Day is opening day. April the 1st will be opening day across Major League Baseball, and they're hoping to get a 162-game season in. All right, let's take a timeout. Be back with more. Phone lines are open, 330-886-0813. That's 330-886-0813. If you're a fan of the Salem Quakers, a fan of the West Branch Warriors, Alliance, Carrollton, Marlington, Minerva, the Eastern Buckeye Conference gets a hit yesterday. It was announced yesterday. The board meeting was actually last Thursday. Canton South is leaving the Eastern Buckeye Conference, and they will be joining the Principals Athletic Conference in the 2022-2023 school year. So Canton South's last year in the Eastern Buckeye Conference will be the 21-22 school year. What do you do with those 6 teams? Do you add on and find another team? Because, well, I can tell you of one team and maybe even 2 teams that should be interested in joining this conference. One for sure, because geographically it makes sense. Now, the other team doesn't make any sense geographically because they're up in Trumbull County, but the 2 schools that I have in mind, Canfield and Howland. I think Canfield would be a tremendous fit for the Eastern Buckeye Conference. If Canfield is not going to join Fitch, Boardman, and Harding and go with those teams, and, rumors are flying around and continue to fly around that Cheney, East, Mooney, Ursuline, that they'll swallow up Boardman, Fitch, and Harding. That's 7 teams. Now, if you put Howland in that, now you got an 8-team league. If you put Canfield in the Eastern Buckeye Conference, everyone has a conference, and you don't have to play an independent schedule. I think Canfield would be a perfect fit for the Eastern Buckeye Conference. You're already, by and large, have a relationship of some sort with Salem and West Branch. You've played Alliance in the past. Marlington is a solid program. Now, Carrollton and Minerva, a little ways away, but again, it's better than playing a strictly independent conference and not having an opportunity to win a league championship. If you're a Canfield Cardinal fan, does the Eastern Buckeye Conference look like an inviting conference for the Canfield Cardinals? We can take some phone calls and talk about it. 330-886-0813. Back in a bit. It is a phone-in Friday edition of Running Point on YSNLive.com.
21
Good evening,
News.
and thank you for joining us.
Let's get right to our top
More
story experienced reporters. A new Wilmington restaurant.
GM Lordstown.
Telling more local stories. We'll look at
Baby boy is recovering from a broken
around our
Good
valley.
Community in Niles. We are here in Youngstown, right up.
Because you expect
Important for everyone. No place like home.
more local news.
In Mercer County Court.
21 News is our valley's #1 local news.
Welcome home to a home made homier with Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods. Inspiration starts at BairdBrothers.com and is turned into reality when high-quality hardwoods are delivered right to your home. Baird Brothers has the latest design trends, shiplap and skinny lap interior siding, antique oak rustic flooring, and, well, you'll find them all at BairdBrothers.com. Ordered easily, delivered conveniently, enjoyed comfortably. BairdBrothers.com.
Hello, I'm Greg Burbick with G. Burbick Farms. For the last 100 years, my family has farmed in Columbiana and Mahoning counties. I began raising cattle in 1996 with the goal of providing a better product for you and your family on the dinner table. Our grass-fed and grain-supplemented Black Angus beef are raised with no hormones, steroids, or antibiotics. We're known for our hometown-friendly service and incredible tasting products. We're locally owned and have customers across the tri-state area. Our products go from our farm to your family. Stop by our farm on New Buffalo Road or visit us on the web at gburbickfarms.com. Don't forget to like us on Facebook. G. Burbick Farms, it just tastes better.
Welcome back to a phone-in Friday edition of Running Points on YSNLive.com. Ron Potesta with you. Taking your phone calls on this phone-in Friday edition of Running Point, 330-886-0813. That's 330-886-0813. Friend Mil Reyes made the news for not a very good thing, although the organization is not mad at Friend Mil Reyes. He made a faux pas, if you will, at the 4th of July gathering with a bunch of people, and Friend Mil Reyes did not have a mask. And the Indians organization urging their players to minimize their exposure to anyone outside their teammates and outside the organization, and he had to do the COVID-19 test and came back negative. So Reyes, not in real trouble. It's just more or less a lesson learned in this, that if you're going to be out and about, if you're a Major League Baseball player and you're going to be out and about outside of your organization, all of Major League Baseball is pretty much saying, hey, you know, we can't stop you from not wanting or from wanting to hang out with your friends outside of baseball. But if you're going to do that, we're going to ask that you wear a mask and respect the social guidelines, social distancing of 6 feet. Otherwise, you're going to have to take a COVID-19 test, and hopefully, you know, you're going to be able to have the test negative so you can restart and and get ready for the upcoming season. I'll tell you what, Franmil Reyes has dropped some weight. Go back in time to before all of this was going on, before COVID took over the psyche of the sports world. Franmil Reyes had dropped weight, and he was starting to work on his defense out in the outfield, where Reyes could be a corner outfielder. He could be a left fielder. He could be a right fielder. And Reyes starting to work on his defensive prowess. Yes, he'll probably have a lot of games where he'll be the designated hitter, but consider the fact the Indians also picked up Domingo Santana. Santana and Reyes, an awful lot alike, where you could have one of them be the DH, the other one as a corner outfielder. Good news for the Indians, Tyler Naquin is completely healed from his torn ACL. He looks like he's going to be the everyday right fielder, or at least the right fielder against right-handed pitching, where Jonathan Luplow, who has hit lefties like nobody's business, would in all likelihood, unless Naquin has consistently started hitting left-handed pitching, you would see a platoon in the early portion. Maybe they let Naquin play every day until there comes a point where perhaps Naquin is not very good against lefties, and then you have Luplow there to be the platoon partner, where Naquin would be playing against righties, and you have Luplow there to play against lefties. We'll see what happens. But, Jose Reyes making some news where he didn't have his mask on, and the Indians aren't disappointed in him. They just, they're telling their players, look, if you're going to go outside of our ball team and you're going to associate with people outside the organization, then you need to put a mask on, and you need to be within 6 feet of people and respect the social guidelines, social distancing. Otherwise, again, you could put yourself in a very difficult situation and ultimately put your team in a very difficult situation. And it's only a matter of time that someone is going to be testing positive for COVID, and be interesting. Course of 60 games, and again, the season starting 2 weeks from yesterday for the Indians and the Pirates. It starts 2 weeks from today. The Indians hosting the Royals, the Pirates visiting St. Louis. If someone tests positive, where do we go? I mean, do we test the other players? And how many of them test positive? If they're on the shelf, then that's when you bring in the minor leaguers who have been working out. If you're a Pirates fan, know this, that the minor league players are working out in Altoona, which is about an hour and a half away from Pittsburgh on State Route 22. The minor leaguers are working out in the Pirates AA affiliate in Altoona. Meanwhile, the Indians minor leaguers that were part of the 60-man roster, they're working out in Eastlake, the home of the the Captains. I don't want to say it's Lake Erie, and now the name is escaping me. But they're in the Midwest League, a low A ball. But the minor leaguers, not on the 40-man roster, those 20 minor leaguers are all working out in Eastlake, the home of the Captains, and the Pirates' 20 minor leaguers that are not on the 40-man roster, they're working out over in Altoona, which is an hour and a half due east of Pittsburgh on State Route 22. So if there's an outbreak, then those minor league players that are working out and getting ready just in case their name gets called, they would be called up if there's an outbreak. That's where Major League Baseball has a 60-man roster just in case an organization or a number of players from different organizations all test positive, and because of that, they would be on the shelf for at least 2 weeks, possibly longer, and they would be replaced by some of those minor league players. And the minor league players scattered out throughout the major league club's closest farm team. So I would imagine that the Orioles are having their kids work out in nearby Bowie, which is about a half an hour, 40 minutes away from Baltimore. I would imagine that the 20 minor leaguers are working out in Bowie. If you're a Blue Jays fan, I would imagine that the 20 minor league players are right across the border in Buffalo. That's Toronto's AAA affiliate. So it's, all the minor league, the closest minor league team to their parent club is in all likelihood hosting the 20 minor leaguers that were not part of the 40-man roster that was invited to summer camp. Because every team is 60 guys in camp, 40 of which are on the major league roster. They're working out in the major league facility, and the other 20 are working out in the minor league system closest to the parent club. And speaking of minor league systems, minor league baseball not playing this year. 2021, apparently we will have minor league baseball in 2021, but again, the contract is up, and who knows what transpires. We were told recently that the Scrappers are planning on a 2021 season as if everything is going to be back to normal. Is that going to be the case? I don't know. It just depends on whether or not Major League Baseball is going to go through with cutting the 42 teams. And if they cut the 42 teams, the list that we had, and in all fairness, the list changes every now and then. But from what we were told, the list would include most of the short season teams. They would be banged out, and you would have essentially rookie and short league teams playing in the spring training facilities, where they would probably play amongst the other spring training teams in their complex. And you would have low A, high A, double A, triple A, and the major leagues. And again, for those that wonder, what's the difference between low A and high A? There's a significant difference. There's a significant difference in the talent level. Baseball is not one of those sports where you can just say, well, we don't need a farm system. Everyone who gets signed can go right to the major leagues. That's not the case. This isn't the National Football League or the NBA where you don't have, I don't want this to sound arrogant in any way. And I don't want this to sound like the two sports aren't difficult to play, because they are. But you don't have nearly as much to master in football and basketball as you do baseball. Now, hockey, again, they have their own farm system, and I think hockey's been doing that. It's not as elaborate as baseball's. Hockey has the AHL, which is essentially AAA hockey, and the Scrappers. Well, that's the American version of the Ontario Hockey League. It's a very solid junior league, and is a league that is fantastic, and it's a great avenue for the fans to get their hockey fix, and hopefully some folks, knock on wood, we have hockey this year. Hopefully the folks are going to be watching the Phantoms, because the Phantoms are a terrific product. It's a fantastic product, and it's hockey on on a very, very good level. And, those kids will either play college hockey or they'll go into the pros. But again, baseball's farm system nowhere near as elaborate, or I should say hockey's farm system nowhere near as elaborate as baseball's farm system. And baseball, you have to master a lot of different stuff. You just do. And there are hoops to jump through. And there's a reason for the farm system. And it bothers me when I hear people that don't understand the relevance and the usefulness of minor league baseball. It just bothers me when I hear people not completely educated when it comes to the importance of minor league baseball. And that's where I scratch my head and wonder if the people that are currently running Major League Baseball understand just how important minor league baseball is to the landscape that is Major League Baseball. And you don't want to hurry everyone through the minor league system and say, at the high A level, well, he's ready. I can count on one hand the amount of guys that made the jump from A ball all the way up to the major leagues and stayed there without any problems. I can only count on one hand in how many years? Close to 50 years of watching baseball. I can count on one hand the amount of players that have done that and were good enough to do that. That just doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. So when people sit back and go, well, there's not really that big of a difference between low A and high A. Yeah, absolutely there is. It's another form of A baseball, but again, it's a pretty important part of A baseball. It's the higher end of A ball. And then the jump from A to double A is the biggest jump that a minor league player is going to make. It just simply is. It's the jump from high A to double A is a large jump. And that's why, for me, with all due respect to those that love to talk about the prospects, to me, nobody's a prospect until you get up to double A ball and you have put your mark on double A ball. Okay, we could see something, you might have a future. But if you go into double A and you play double A ball really well, nothing's perfect, but there's a really good chance if you can play solid baseball in double A, there's a pretty good chance that you can find yourself on the major league roster and have a pretty good major league career. Now, there are two guys, ironically enough, both players that ultimately wound up coming to Cleveland that played well in double A ball in the Southern League and weren't very good when they got to the major leagues. Andy Marte, who has since passed away. Andy Marte, I saw him when the Braves double A organization was in Greenville, South Carolina. And this was before they moved to Pearl, Mississippi. Andy Marte was a fantastic double A player. Fantastic. Hit the ball, hit with average, hit with power, solid glove. He looked like someone that was going to be a good Major League Baseball player. Anything but. Just didn't work out. And then the other guy that the Indians got in the CC Sabathia deal, Matt Laporta. And again, this is a story I love to tell. The AA affiliate of the Brewers back then were the Huntsville Stars. They played baseball at Joe Davis Stadium, which was an absolutely despicable stadium. It was a dump. It was a horrible dump. As a matter of fact, Eastwood Field is 1,000,000 times better than Joe Davis Stadium. Regardless. Huntsville used to play their games at Joe Davis Stadium, and we saw plenty of Matt Laporta. The year that the Indians were going to be trading away CC Sabathia, there was talk that the Indians were going to be in the running for getting a Matt Laporta. And the week leading up to the trade, we were going to be going into Huntsville. Now, one of the coolest parts of minor league baseball is when you get closer to the deadline, you see an enormous amount of scouts, depending on which organizations are trying to make deals, and they're trying to look at different players, and the Indians had their scout in Huntsville, the 5-game series that we were playing the Huntsville Stars. Now, side note, Huntsville's manager, former big leaguer, good guy, just a really good guy, Don Money. Don Money is a baseball lifer. He's just one of those guys that, fantastic, just a great guy to be around. He's a lifer. He understands the game. He's just one of those guys that is in for the kids, and he understands that his job as the Double-A manager is to give as much advice and as much of an opportunity for those kids. Don Money and Matt Laporta did not get along very well. Yeah, they just didn't. Money thought that Laporta was not that good of a he was good, but he wasn't on board with things. He just wasn't very good in terms of taking advice. It was Laporta had his own way of doing things, and he didn't want to really be bothered with hearing other people's advice. So Don Money and Laporta did an awful lot of this, button heads. So the week leading up to the deal that was made, and Money and I became really good friends when I was in the Southern League, and I was already in the Southern League, I want to say 3 or 4 years, and Don was there that entire time. So he and I were really good friends, and he knew I was an Indians fan. And when the word was starting to circulate that Sabathia might go to the Milwaukee Brewers, he kept telling me, he goes, "You guys are going to love Laporta." And he goes, "Just get that kid away from me. You guys are going to love Laporta as long as I don't have to deal with him anymore. You guys you're going to love him." And it just became a running joke after a while. The Indian scouts came to the broadcast booth, and actually the press box. I had my own booth, and we were getting our meal, which all the minor league press box and the broadcasters are getting a meal courtesy of the minor league team. So they have the meal up in the press box, and we're getting our food, and the Indian scout is there, and he and I started talking, and he realized that I was a huge Indians fan. And I'm not gonna sit here and not address the 500-pound elephant in the room. Of course I am. So I came up with a conversation. Hey, Sabathia to Milwaukee. I mean, the fact that you're here, there has to be some validity to this. And he goes, "Oh yeah, absolutely. We're here to see 3 different players." I'm like, "Okay." He goes, "Maybe you can help me out because, you've seen these guys a lot more than I have." I said, "Okay." He goes, "The guy that we really want is a player that Milwaukee is not willing to give up. Alcides Escobar." The Indians really wanted Alcides Escobar. Now, looking at what Escobar did in Major League Baseball, fantastic glove, didn't hit all that much. Anthony, when he comes back on Monday, and I bring up Alcides Escobar, he's probably going to have a few things to say about Alcides because he was a member of the Kansas City Royals. He was a really good prospect with the Milwaukee Brewers. there were scouts that projected him to be a above average Gold Glove caliber shortstop, which he was. But there were people that thought he would have been a much better hitter in the major leagues. That never really transpired. But the player that the Indians craved and ultimately weren't getting, because the Brewers had no intentions of dealing him at the time because his stock was pretty high, was Alcides Escobar. Okay, he's out. Well, who are the other two players? Well, we're really high on Matt Laporta, and I rolled my eyes at that point. And the guy looked at me and he said, "What's wrong with Laporta?" I said, "Look, I mean, the numbers are great." Without getting into any detail, Don Money doesn't like this kid. And Don Money's a baseball lifer. He doesn't like this kid. He thinks that this kid is someone that doesn't take any advice from anyone, and it's his way. He's really stubborn, set in his ways, doesn't really want to, listen to advice. It's just his way, and he has his people that he listens to, and they're not necessarily, quote, baseball people. Wow, his numbers are fantastic. I agree. Because at the time, Laporta was hitting, I think, mid 340s, and his power numbers were there. I mean, he was putting up some good numbers, putting up some solid numbers. But I sat back and said, the guy that you guys really want, and he's not putting up those kind of numbers, but I think that he's going to be a much better ball player because I think he's starting to get it all together. And I saw him play in the Florida State League and saw what he could do. And then I've seen him in AA ball, and I saw the growth from A to AA, which was pretty huge, and I knew that there was more growth spurts involved. I said, the guy you guys really want is Michael Brantley. That's who I think you guys should go after. Because I think if you told me long-term, who would you rather have, Matt Laporta or Michael Brantley, I told him Michael Brantley hands down, and I'd do it 100 times over. He goes, well, I mean, the numbers aren't there. And I said, I understand that. The numbers aren't there. I get it. But it's not all about just looking at those numbers. I mean, everyone knows that you have to project. And sometimes you can project where a player is going to be. It's not a science. But there are times you look at someone and you have a good feel about someone. I had a good feel about Michael Brantley when I saw him play in Huntsville, and when I saw him play in the Florida State League. I had a good feel for this kid. I thought he was going to be a solid major league player. And again, I also thought Andy Marte was going to be a solid player. That didn't work out very well. And Neil Huntington, who is the former general manager of the Pirates, Huntington was with the Indians, and he flat out asked me, because I had seen Marte play a ton. He goes, Ron, what do you think of Marte? I said, this kid's about as close as can't miss as humanly possible. Guess what? He missed. There's no science involved in this. It just depends on the caliber of player, the caliber of the person's work ethic. And I just thought the Indians were better off with Michael Brantley, and they probably should have gone a different direction from Matt Laporta. And I said that, and the scout said, well, Indians want Laporta in the worst way. Okay. We'll see what happens. Hopefully he's able to get away from the stubbornness that he had, and obviously he never did. Laporta was a major league player, but he wasn't really there all that long because he just couldn't adapt, wouldn't adapt. Michael Brantley turned out to be an all-star, and he was the guy that was the throw-in. And I don't know if I had anything to do with it or not. I mean, I had my opinion. The scout obviously was looking at the entire roster during the 5-game series, and all scouts have their reports on every single player. That's their job. When they're there for a complete series, they are evaluating every single player that they see on that baseball field the entire series. It is a fascinating job. And there is no 100% sure thing with scouting. There just isn't. I can remember Oneri Fleta, who was the minor league director of operations for the Chicago Cubs. When I was with the Cubs organization, 03 to 06, Felix PA was the jewel of the Cubs organization. He was the absolute jewel of the organization. And he had been a winner everywhere he'd gone. Rookie league ball, they won a title. Short A, they won a title. Low A, they won a title. High A, you guessed it. Matter of fact, I wrote for the Cubs minor league magazine. And we did an article on PA and the fact that he had 4 championship rings. And he had all 4 rings on. They took a picture of him, and he had 2 rings on one hand, 2 rings on the other hand. And the article was, this is the future of the Chicago Cubs, and he's going to bring the winning mentality back to the Cubs organization. And Oneri Fleta was telling me the entire offseason, watch this kid, you're going to love him, da-da-da-da-da-da. A month into it, the farm director comes to Jackson, and he and I have a sit-down, and he goes, what do you think of PA? I said, do you want my honest opinion, or do you want my company opinion? And he goes, there's a difference? I said, hell yeah, there is. This kid's not a major league player. And if he is, he ain't going to be a regular. Not going to happen. And it was as if I killed someone in his family. How could you possibly say this? Do you not understand this is the jewel of our farm system? Yeah. And I'm telling you, the jewel of your farm system ain't a major league player. He ain't a major league regular. He just isn't. He's not all that impressive. Now, we're a month in, and maybe he winds up having a better season, but I'm going to tell you right now, the Felix PA that I'm seeing, he ain't all that good. He's not the answer. He is not a blue chip prospect. I got about 20 guys in this organization or 20 guys in this league that are way better than Felix PA. Same thing down the road with Carlos Truenfell. Carlos Truenfell was selected by the Seattle Mariners. He was supposed to be the Felix PA of the Chicago Cubs. Carlos Truenfell barely made the major leagues and maybe a cup of coffee, if that. Again, now, injuries were part of Truenfell's game, but when he was healthy, he wasn't that good of a player. Oh, he raked in A-ball when he got to Double-A. Wasn't that good. So, moral of the story, the scouts, God bless them, their job, and they are the lifeblood of Major League Baseball. I trust the scouts' opinion way more than I trust the higher-ups' opinion, because the scouts are going to tell you what's really going on. Not that the farm directors aren't. I mean, the farm directors are there to promote their product. Well, let's be honest. The farm directors are the guys that are going to promote the hell out of what they have, and whether it's good or not, they're going to promote the hell out of their product. And they're going to tell you it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. I'm going to give you an organization that absolutely, positively did that and made a killing doing that. The Los Angeles Dodgers. The LA Dodgers had the most overrated farm system in baseball. they had good players. Don't get me wrong. They had good players. But if you talked with Lasorda or any of the guys within the organization, they'd sit back and say, we're the greatest thing since sliced bread. And they just talked and talked and talked about how great all of their minor leaguers were. By doing that, they were able to get a lot of pretty decent major league talent when they had to fill in some pieces on the major league level to put themselves at or over the top. They used some of the minor league guys that they were touting the heck out of, and they were able to get some of those players to give up that minor league talent that was nowhere near as good as the Dodgers would tout them as. So at the end of the day, when I was in the game, I loved talking with the scouts. And I loved just sitting down and saying, what do you think of this guy? And playing the projection game. That is one of the best parts about minor league baseball. And the thing is, if you're a baseball fan, anyone can do that. If you go to a minor league game, this is one of my favorite things now that I'm not in baseball, in minor league ball. It's one of my favorite things to do. You go to a minor league game and you watch your team, whether it's the Scrappers, if you're going to Altoona to watch the Curve, if you're going up to Erie to watch the Seawolves, if you're going to Akron, if you're going to East Lake to watch the Captains, if you're going to Morgantown to watch the Black Bears, wherever you're going, the opportunity to watch minor league players. And the more games you see from this player, the more you have an educated opinion on where this player is going to be and how far up the ladder this guy could possibly go, depending on what organization he's in. That, to me, is the best part of minor league baseball, where you have an opportunity as a fan to play the role of a scout or a farm director and try to figure out, okay, this kid, man, he's doing a really good job this year in this league. Does he have what it takes to go to the major leagues? Play that game for a year or two. It's a lot of fun. Because I'm going to tell you right now, it's not perfect. It is not perfect. I got a lot of players that I thought through the years would be unbelievably great Major League Baseball players. And as it turns out, they weren't. Injuries or the fact that they just weren't as good as the numbers would indicate, or they were overmatched the next level. And that, as we tie everything together, is one of the reasons why minor league baseball is so important to Major League Baseball. Just because someone is doing really well in A ball, there's no guarantee he's going to be able to do that in AA or AAA. And like I said, there's a gigantic difference between A to AA. The biggest of which you're gonna jump. The jump from A to AA is the biggest jump you're ever going to make as a player. Short season to low A, that's a significant jump. Short A to high A, significant jump. But high A or low A to AA, that's a big jump. AA to AAA, not so much, because the AAA players are now encompassing quad A players, guys that were in the majors, not quite good enough to be in the majors, but good enough to be in AAA ball. And as long as they don't have a pissy attitude and they're good organizational guys, they're gonna play AAA ball, get paid okay, not great, but they're gonna get paid okay. All right, so there's your lesson in minor league baseball and one of the reasons why I absolutely love it. All right, 330-886-0813. Back in a bit to close up shop. It is a phone-in Friday edition of Running Point on YSNLive.com.
The details. Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods is one fine ride. Perfect cornering, superb handling, sporty and stylish, power to spare, plus awesome mileage. Yeah, jaw-droppingly beautiful lines and well appointed with luxurious trim. Put more oomph in your life and start beholding the molding. Find your home's fine hardwood at BairdBrothers.com.
Storm season.
I think we're under the gun for some heavy storms over the next couple of hours.
And Storm Tracker 21 is ready.
This is probably the one we're keeping a closer eye on.
On air.
And locally, we're going to have a lot of eyes on our area.
Online.
All right, let's talk high-risk futurecast and the timing of this weather.
On social media and on our app.
Today in the showers, I'm keeping my eye on in parts of Columbiana County.
Stay ready with Storm Tracker 21.
The severe weather threat now through around sunset this evening.
Hi everyone, this is DJ Yoakley with Your Sports Network. We appreciate your support of YSN and welcome you to the YSN family. Our broadcast streams are brought to you live at no cost to you by sponsors that are local to this community. Without the vision and generosity of our sponsors and partners, we would not be able to bring this game to you today. So please support the great businesses and leaders that are making this game possible. And if you're a business in need of great advertising and sponsorship opportunities, feel free to head over to our site for more information on the right fit for you. We are local, we are loyal, and we are live. We are YSN.
Welcome back to a phone-in Friday edition of Running Point on YSNLive.com. The second round of the Workday Charity Open has once again been suspended because of ugly weather. And by the way, speaking of ugly weather, woo, man, do we got some ugly weather in East Palestine. It's raining sideways, and thank God I made the decision to put the windows up and the moonroof closed. Otherwise, I would have Noah's Ark in my, or a bunch of water in my car, because it is raining to beat all. Oof, man, it's ugly. Raining sideways and all kinds of lightning, so be very, very careful if you're in and about the area, as we have a flood advisory right now going on in East Palestine, and more yucky stuff to come. As I'm looking at radar right now, and there is a ban of all kinds of Lucky Charms type of colors, all the colors of the rainbow. I could just see the meteorologist going, always after me, Lucky Charms. You got some oranges, you got some reds, you've got some yellows, you got some greens, you got some teal, mauve, and yeah, all kinds of different stuff. And it's all in southern Mahoning, northern Columbiana County, all the way up into Trumbull and Ashtabula County, as that system is going to finally work its way past us for a brief period of time, and then the rain is just going to stick around till about 7:45 tonight, if not further. I mean, a lot of rain. So the good news is the temperatures have cooled off. The temperature was, I believe, 91 or 92 when I got here. It's now 78 degrees in East Palestine. And, again, raining all over the place. You got a flood advisory in our neck of the woods. So, again, if you're driving in this, or if you're inside, make sure that you have a weather radio, or make sure you are tuned in to someone that is going to give you a very good weather forecast, because, again, this is scary stuff, especially when you got the dark reds coming over your area. That's pretty disturbing. By the way, Lake County Captains, that's the Indians Low A organization. I knew it wasn't Lake Erie, it was Lake County. That's the county that the Captains play in, Lake County up in East Lake. That is the Indians Low A team, and that's where the 20 minor leaguers that are not part of the 40-man roster, they're playing in Lake County home of the Lake County Captains in Eastlake. Meanwhile, the Pirates, 20 minor leaguers that are not on the 40-man roster, they are working out in my home stomping grounds of Altoona, where I spent the 2009 season in Altoona. By the way, that was the year Pedro Alvarez came to town, and Pedro Alvarez had an unreal second half of the season, and the organization thought, man, Alvarez is going to be the greatest thing in the world, and he was okay. He had a decent major league career, but he was nowhere near the talent or nowhere near the impact that the Pirates originally thought. And again, that all goes back into our little discussion in the last 45 minutes. Not only is this a non-guaranteed game, it's a crapshoot when you deal with major league and minor league baseball players, minor league players, and projecting them. It is an absolute crapshoot. No matter what kind of numbers you're trying to get, it is a crapshoot. There's no way where you're 100% solid, and that's just the bottom line. All right, we'll be back on Monday. So will Anthony. He's got barbecue sauce for me. I may have to slather myself in that barbecue sauce on Monday. Get the chin all barbecue sauced up with the hot stuff. That'll do it. Have a great weekend, everyone. We will talk on Monday. Enjoy your weekend. You've been listening to Running Point. By all means, follow me at Running Point. It's on Twitter, at Running Point. You can also follow my Twitter account, at Ron Potesta.